Day 4. Unusually, I was the last awake, well, barring the Habridat, so at least that was something normal. Luckily Lando had got Hermione to fly in asleep, so that we didn't have a repeat of the other day when the bedroom started moving. The last thing we wanted to do was give Margalo more ammunition against us, as she had become even more bullying of late. Finding my last notebook still lying on top of my bed, I went to put it away, but my last entry, which I only very hazily remembered making, caught my eye. I ran off to show it to my classmates. "Ooh," said Lando, "I'm not very good with creative writing and symbolism, Colin. I'm best with stories that are straightforward. I'd go and show it to someone else if I were you." So I tried Bettina.
"Oh, Colin,"
she crowed,
"don't I get enough blooming things to read in class? Go try someone else."
I went to Archulus. He scanned it quickly and shrugged his shoulders at the touch of the button.
"No proof of what it is or was,"
he said simply.
"Nothing I could do without concrete evidence or facts. Sorry."
Next was Elfrida.
Oh,
she said,
"I didn't know you wrote this sort of thing, Colin. Interesting beginning, but what you really need in this scene is a fire-breathing algebra. Your enemies are all too shadowy and vague."
So I tried Squash.
"Not on, old bean,"
he said, doffing his school cap to me.
"Do give me a signed copy when you publish it.
Running out now, I tried Jake, who read the first line and backed away squeaking
Scary
very loudly. Next was Hermione, who fell asleep midway through the first sentence. Then XXXX, who ate a slice out of the corner because he thought I was offering him breakfast. Finally I tracked down Robin, who looked at the words with alarm. "You know what this is, don't you, Colin?" she said. "I think this has something to do with the room we found the other day, with all the laboratory equipment in it. I think somebody has been testing us." She felt all round my tail for a puncture mark, the way I had described it in my notes. "Here it is," she said, and felt for one on her body, but there wasn't one she could find. "Maybe they only test us after a certain amount of time here," she asked. "Maybe I'm too new." Picking up Jake, who just happened to be running past, she ran her hands over his fur and found a puncture mark just by his tail too. Calling the others over, we found that everyone had puncture marks of one kind or another too, except for her. "What does it mean?" asked Lando, worried. "And why can't we remember anything about it?"
"These puncture marks, together with our lack of memories, would suggest some form of drug designed to make us forget everything," mused Archulus. "The question is, what do they want us to forget so badly they've gone to all this trouble?"
"I don't know,"
said Bettina gravely.
"but we shall be prepared for it from now on. Each of you keep an eye out and tell me if you remember anything."
"You especially, Robin," said Lando, worried. "You're the one we haven't tested yet by the look of things." Robin went pale. "But how do I stop it?" she asked. "We can't really do much on our own. And who can we tell? Is it worth going to Mr. Clandusprod, do you think?"
"Hardly,"
muttered Hermione, rolling her eyes.
"He's as bad as she is by action. You've kinder on words. He'd only go and report it to someone else if we told him about this, though. We'll have to say this between ourselves, the way children always do." "Well,"
said Bettina, thinking,
"let's all be on the lookout for anything out of the ordinary. Oh, well done, Colin, for having the sense to write it all down, or none of us would ever have known anything about it."
I felt proud. This was the sort of intention I enjoyed.
"Now then,"
said Elfrida,
"talking of horrible experiences leaving puncture marks for time's eternal, who's ready for Mrs. Maggrump's next lesson?"
"Robin," said Margalo sarcastically, waiting by the bathroom as everyone went to clean their teeth and get ready for their last day on Orpheus.
"I just got human disease. I think I got it from you. I feel extra dense. I'm turning ugly. I'm losing my antlers. I keep falling over."
She fell over, theatrically. I could tell this all stung, but Robin did her best not to show it, and she shrugged her shoulders as carelessly as she could, taking our classmate down with facts to make her look stupid. "There's no such thing as human disease. There's not even such a thing as a disease anymore, thanks to the Mekkions of their antivirus filters. If there is, you didn't catch it from me. I've not been in close contact with you since I got here." Robin shuddered. Perish the thought.
"And you're positive?"
asked Margalo. "I'm positive," said Robin. cackled Margalo.
"You just said you tested positive for human disease."
"No," sighed Robin. "I said I was positive that you couldn't catch it."
Made you say it, made you say it,
danced Margalo.
Listen up, everyone. Robin tested positive for human disease. She admitted it. She's full of germs.
There's only one blasted creature who gets under our skin in this school, said
Bettina.
Oh, that's you, Margalo. Put a sock in it already.
But Margalo wasn't listening.
She's a little human,
she said, shelling.
I bet you can't even stand upright. You certainly can't run away from me. Slow cage.
Robin sighed. She'd already gone through this so many times back in her old school. Quit it, Antlers! Margalo was having too much of a fun time there, pushing Robin so hard she fell. The class rushed over, me at the front, and Lando close behind.
What are you going to do then?
Margalo leered at me.
Draw a picture for me with your pencil? You're too scared to tell anyone.
Enraged, I aimed my pencil right between her antlers in a place where I knew Magrumphs were vulnerable.
Mummy!
Margalo cried, running off to find Mrs. Magrumphus.
I'm human. I'm a Camalosian. Will pick you up, me.
Aiming with her left hand as she ran, she punched Robin and caught her unawares, making her land on top of Squash.
Good morning.
The Agrosian said politely, raising his hat.
Fine day for being squashed, isn't it? My pleasure to break your fall.
So sorry, said Robin, sitting up. Again. I seem to be forever doing this to you.
On the contrary,
said Squash.
it's others who seem to be forever doing this to you, which in turn means you are forever falling on me. We are both helpless passengers in these cruel turn of events.
That Maggrumph has to be stopped,
said Bettina, helping Robin to her feet.
She's going too far this time. It'd serve her right if we leave her behind tomorrow to her doom, house points or not.
Can we really do that to her? Asked Lando. Like it or not, she is one of us. Bettina snorted.
1,000,000 mechanical Mekkions in moccasins. She's never one of us. All the same, that doesn't mean we condemn her to death, or we would just end up like her. Let's see what she does for the rest of the day, and make our decision tomorrow. First things first, though, we better get ready for our first lesson. Oh dear, I recognise those antlers. Mrs. Maggrumph really is back.
You're all very weary,
said Mrs. Maggrumph later in class.
If you were older, I shouldn't be at the beer.
She was right. I don't think any of us have got much sleep. I've been so worn out from my strange experience I hadn't even bothered to write down the intervening hours. There's not a lot had really happened, except snoozing and brushing our teeth and helping Jape escape from his electric toothbrush and getting ready for school. Mrs. Maggrumph didn't look too good herself. It was a very different sight to when she'd been all dignified and dressed up the day before her, accident. Her antlers were crooked. There were red paint stains down her face. Traces of red weed continued to cling to her body, and she still had fragments of a mop on her head.
First, though, I'm going to study your art homework from your lesson last, though I'm willing to bet you learned nothing in Mr. Clandustrod's class. My colleague is far too slack. Something tells me for detention you'll all be coming back.
She looked over their work.
Are you all insane? I left strict instructions to draw all the same. I don't like the way children are thinking for themselves in this generation. It gives them ideas about their station. Now I shall have to sit down before I do roll call. I'm still feeling fragile after my fall.
Are you all right, miss?
Asked Bettina, somehow managing to keep a straight face. Well, 1 out of 3 at least.
That's all, Miss but Mrs. I'm none of your business,
she snapped.
Oh, do tell us,
said Bettina again.
We are all so worried about your health and welfare, oh teacher.
Mrs. Maggrumph looked pleased at this. Magrumphs and teachers both being famous for not understanding the complexities of sarcasm.
If you must know, I had a most unfortunate morn. I went to look for your homework. I found my way gone. When I was looking around, I got hit by a mop. I was then attacked by paintings and just wouldn't stop. Then, just as when I was developing a sense of dread, a water cooler collapsed on my head. I got completely soaked to the point where I might have croaked. Then I fell on a banana peel. I lost my balance from my head to my heel. It was all most unfair. I shall tear the caretaker off for leaving it now.
A sudden thought occurred to her.
Of course, if there is any trickery, I shall find evidence, but you will all be sick of me, for I will truly lay down the law, and then you'll all get what fall.
The class all gulped as one. Even Margalo, who didn't know the first thing about what we'd been up to.
Now, Dave,
Mrs. Maggrumph called.
It's time for a test, in which I want you all to prove to me that you are the best. Only a change to the router is a mystery. In a change to the timetable I'm taking, history. Remember, if you work hard, you get points for your house. If not, we all not so so much of alien, more of a louse. Now I am going for a minute, and at least 10 points to the box, but I will keep you in here by sitting the locks.
She departed.
No!
Cried Achilles in hysterics, blowing a fuse in the short circuitry.
My routine! She can't just change the lesson like that on a whim. And if I miss Padna, how can I cope on a trip too? What will I do? When will I do it? When will I stop doing it?
There, said Lando, patting him on the arm. Just don't do anything, you don't have to. Even Mekkions deserve treats and holidays, you know. If it all goes wrong and we can't get away, you'll be back here again soon in any case.
Yeah,
Said Hermione.
waiting soon.
Are you all right? Robin was sitting beside Archelaus, so could put her hand out to comfort him. We could make up our own little routine on the trip if you wanted. We could pretend we were still at school and doing normal things. Archelaus looked up at her and grinned.
Thank you. That would be nice. I suppose you'll think I'm a silly Mekkion. It's just that routines make me feel safe and comfortable, and as if I know exactly what I'm doing. I hate losing control. Unexpected events can be so unexpected.
Robin was clearly thinking about her own experiences, with a faraway look in her eyes. I can relate, she said. Too many bad things can happen when you're not looking. Then it makes you be on guard against new ones coming all the time. It's exhausting.
Exactly,
said Archelaus, cheering up at being understood so readily by the class newcomer, when all he usually got was teasing and banter.
I wish I could run free in a world of uncertainty and doubt and make beautiful things out of my confusion, the way Elfrida does, but I'm too scared to do that. I need facts to function.
Mrs. Maggrumph walked back into the classroom and continued.
This is a test of general knowledge. It's all around hard, so I hope for your section all had your knowledge.
XXXX nodded at this, holding out his empty bowl for proof.
Anyone who scores a low mark gets to take the test with me until well after dark. As this planet has 2 suns, that means I can keep you here until kingdom come.
That's not fair,
Said Bettina.
You can't test our knowledge about something we haven't even been taught, then punish us for not knowing about it. You're supposed to be teaching us things so that we can pass tests like this one.
Mrs. Maggrumph grinned wickedly.
It wouldn't matter how hard you swap. I'm only interested in whether you pass or not. If you do, then you are free. If you don't, then you're no good to me. You might as well be dead, or...
She chuckled evilly.
Or at least turn red. Our Clandusprod gave you all far too many housepots yesterday, and now it's my turn to take them all away. Not to pass and need you all to be brainy, and to make sure you all think the theory.
But a gaggle of aghast, agitated, agrophobic Agrosians.
Continued Bettina.
We've got better things to do with our free time.
The teacher scoffed.
There's nothing so important as this. All the dates which you ought to list. For if you don't know the dates when things occurred, how will it be of any help to you in this world?
History is about much more than dates.
Pointed out Elfrida.
It's about knowing why things happened and turned out the way we did, so we can learn from them and perhaps stop them happening again.
Enough,
Said Mrs. Maggrumph.
You've had your say. Dates are all I'm interested in today. And if you continue on, my friends, you'll be memorising the whole lot over the weekend. And if you fail next week's test, then, well, I digress.
Were you never young once, Mrs. M?
Bettina complained.
Don't you remember what it was like having a whole universe of new things to learn about and explore, people to play with, fun to have?
Mrs. Maggrumph spat out a tea.
You don't be silly. I was born old. Don't do as you're told.
How did you end up a teacher?
Asked Hermione, trying to extend the conversation so we would run out of time for the test. Mrs. Maggrumph sighed.
What's my job? Not too much of a goal. Insulted the mayor. He said I would pay or I would be exiled. So I retreated a while. Finally got sickly. Needed a job quickly. So I got 3 years. Now I'm still bloody here.
So teaching is not a passion for you then? Asked Lando. Mrs. Maggrumph snorted.
Teaching a waste of my beautiful face. I'll give you jokes. The rest is just hard work. I don't know the children, but you are just kids. If I have to cope with you anymore, I shall flip my lid. Always asking questions so young and mature. I'm not like proper children. I can't take this anymore.
Yeah, well,
Muttered Elfrida.
you know what kids who question everything grow into, don't you? Goats, the greatest of all time.
What's up with us though? Asked Lando. If you don't mind me asking. We seem just like every other group of children to me, the whole universe over. No better, no worse.
Where to begin? You lack discipline. You're also unruly, fed up of your tomfoolery. Thus it evens the score. My life was ruined, so I hope yours.
Isn't the way we're acting now how you said you were when you behaved?
Put in Bettina.
Yes, but as me, I'm special, you see. You kids are a pest, just like all the rest. But because you're swollen and nearly in the ground, so I get to boss you around.
That seems wrong,
said Hermione.
Ha!
Said Mrs. Maggrumph.
You think that's unfair? Well, what do I care? This isn't my school. I just enforce the rules. It's no big loss. I still get to be the boss.
She handed out the test papers.
Now the final chapter. These skulls are anything about it.
It was a horrid test. Camalosians only tended to know about what was happening in the legal system in the present day. We had no interest in what lay behind us, or what was in store in the future. Or at least only I did, with my stack of papers a gateway to the past, and my worries a warning system to the future. I certainly had no idea on what date things had happened to the other planets, though, planets I'd never been to. From the sound of the groans around me, everyone else was having as hard a time as I was. I wish that we had at least been given a multiple choice question. But no, that was even sillier, for what was the point of proving that you were a good guesser? Where did that get you in life, except showing you were lucky once on a solitary test? I looked down at the sheet.
Question 1. What year Clandusprod dating was Lizzie born in? How old was she when the events in Endurance took place? 2. What year did the Belobrats first invade Glabdiharbit and thus make the first interstellar contact in our section of the universe? 3. What year did the Habridats first become aware of humans but decide not to bother contacting them because it was too much effort? 4. In what year did a rogue alien spaceship arrive in Roswell, New Mexico, Earth, and spark interest in life on other planets amongst the natives? 5. When did the first Argibraphs arrive on a planet other than the home world of Habridat? 6. What was the date of the intended apocalypse in Endurance before it got cancelled by Edwin and Lizzie? 7. What was the year, Mrasianart dating, when the intergalactic riots broke out and Tyrant Alethea was dethroned? 8. What year did the Agrosians hold the International Peace Organisation hostage? 9. What was the first year Camalosian law was applied to species of another planet? 10. What year did the Doosbury Giant's cook-off want food for the first time? 11. After interstellar contact was made, how many years did it take for a Maggrumph to speak in a full sentence to an alien? 12. What year did Gyoko Glabdiharbit unveil her conceptual artwork as Squeaking for Peace? 13. When did unscrupulous become the standard mode of transport on your home planet? 14. When was Orpheus founded? 15. How old is your teacher? Sensible answers only, please. I groaned. Talk about missing the point, I thought. It wasn't when these events happened that I needed to know to live a full and enriched life. It was why. The last was clearly a trick question too. I'd better put something low. But how low is a Maggrumph year again? I didn't want to be patronising and make her seem really young. I sucked my pencil, scribbled a few lines, and hoped for the best. Here are the answers for anyone wondering, cribbed from the sheet I found on the table and read upside down during the following lesson. 1. 117-6497 Quam. She was 642. 2. 0.5 BIC, before interstellar contact. 3. 1944 Earth time, or 12.7 Habridat time, the date of the planet's first satellite broadcast, by adulthood. 4. June 14th, 1947. You're allowed a day, either way. 5. 2760 Habridat time, when they arrived on Glabdiharbit. Oh dear, squeaks and Glabdiharbit time. 6. 2030 Earth time. That's the year, not the hour, by the way. 7. 2071. 8. 2282. 9. 46397 subsection C, paragraph 9692.2.6, appendix B. Number 10. Donut 47/pineapple 7/marshmallow 4. Doosbury dating. All Doosbury time measurements are based on units of how long things take to cook. 11. 182 years. 12. The Walrus was Yoko, squeak 9936, Glabdiharbit time. 13. 6868799797, subsection D, paragraph 91.17, appendix Y, Camalosian time. 14. Last year. 15. Correct answer. Your teacher is ageless. Any numbers less than 10 or over 25
It's automatic detection.
All right,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
you may have a rest while I mark these tests, but I expect you back soon in shower for your next class in half an hour.
With that she began to glower.
Won't retire anyone who gets a low score, or I will bring the whole wide lot of you in for law.
That was awful.
Moaned Bettina as we walked outside in the yard.
Why should I care about subsection paragraph 4 something or other dating, even those events I'd heard of? It didn't matter anything to me when they happened, just that they did.
I just thought I failed.
Squeaked Jake.
I'm going to get stuck in my classroom in detention forever.
Also,
Said Archelaus.
apparently we don't serve detention time concurrently, only accumulatively. They don't even do that at the prisons on the planet Ensconce. Fact.
Well,
Bettina.
let's hope we don't need to worry and we'll be out of here by the time lessons start again next week.
There was a hush around the class. Are we really going to do it? Asked Lando. Do you think we can? What if we get lost? Or hurt? Or...
A billion blistering Belobrats with blunderbusses, it's got to be better than staying here.
said Bettina.
I don't quite know what they're up to exactly. Based on past evidence, it's not going to be good.
Margalo entered the room.
Everyone be quiet.
Bettina hissed.
Remember, you can't trust her.
Well, shouldn't we tell her something about her plan? Whispered Lando. We're meant to be saving her too.
No fear.
Said Bettina.
She spoils everything. And right now I'm tempted to just abandon her to their fate, to be honest.
I'm hungry, announced Margalo. Give me your food replicator vouchers, or you'll get some nasty ouches. Margalo tried it on with XXXX. The Doosbury Giant just sat on her.
Gas me, you big oaf,
she said.
because on your own side. If there is anyone to be universal side.
Not as big as I was.
Said XXXX, sadly complying.
This Doosbury Giant will become a midget if this keeps up. I don't want to give up my vouchers.
Perhaps sensing she had lost that battle, Margalo looked round the room for another victim.
Yeah,
she said, sticking out both her tongue and her antlers as she towered over a quaking Jake.
look who's weak, look who's weak. Now hand over those food vouchers or I'll eat you.
I'm too scared to eat anyway.
Quivered Jake.
I hope you like Glabdiharbit jelly.
What do you mean?
Asked Margalo.
Oh, ice cream.
These vouchers entitle us to the actual food we eat on our planet.
Said Jake.
So all you'll get is some tasteless Glabdiharbit jelly full of our nutrients and vitamins, I'm afraid. Sorry. Might help keep your fur shiny, but it probably won't do much else for you. It's all very tasteless. We Glabdiharbits are terrified of strong flavours.
Margalo shrugged.
Better than nothing. I'm still in the mood for showy.
So saying, she picked up Jake and slammed him hard against the wall. Jake whimpered and rolled up into a ball. He looked genuinely hurt.
Don't you dare come after me, as I can get any of you expelled any time I want.
A hush fell over the class. Margalo continued.
I know your secret. Each and every one of you here is a problem child, expelled from your old school. All of you are on the last warnings, so you have to do as I say, and do my homework for you. The ones of you who weren't expelled have been too thick, that is.
She glanced at Lando while she said this, and he shifted uncomfortably.
But who's going to stop me?
Margalo said.
You?
She said to Jake, who was still cowering in the corner.
You?
She said to a defiant Robin, pushing her suddenly without warning, so that she lost her balance and went sprawling.
Or you?
She said to me, snapping my best pencil in half. Luckily I had a new one out ready to write before she knew what was happening.
Remember,
She continued.
I am you all. Oh yes, you all think you're such a community, don't you? Alright, proper cave climbing youngsters, meeting up and chatting all night, excluding me. Well, the bad part of being in a clan is that I can threaten your weakest members to get what I want. There's nothing whatsoever even the strongest of you can do about it. There are a lot of weak members here.
She walked right up to Squash, who fell over in alarm, then back to Jake, who she picked up to have another bash.
Right, that does it. Detention or not, I'm not letting you push my friends around. How dare you, outland alien anarchist?
Said Bettina, second on the scene behind Lando, who was looking after Jake and trying to get him to uncoil to check his injuries. Thankfully, it didn't seem to be as serious as it looked. Margalo grabbed the Belobrat's arms in turn and twirled her round while bringing her hands up to her face.
Why are you hitting yourself?
She asked.
3 hands at once in the face too. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Why, you little... Ow, ow, ow!
Exploded Bettina.
No wonder you don't have any friends.
Margalo said to Bettina, whipping out her phone and recording.
Careful what you're doing. You don't want to be expelled, do you? Not again.
Bettina gnashed 3 sets of teeth. Margalo turned her back and leaned back over Jake again.
Remember, I can do what I like to any of you whenever I want to. You're mine, you squeaky ball of fur. No one would risk their liberty to help you, which means I can beat you up whenever I want.
Margalo smiled and aimed Jacob at Wall again, then found a hand being held back. I rushed to help and saw several of my classmates do the same, but Lando was fastest on the scene. Margalo winced, momentarily frozen, as a giant shadow loomed over her and dwarfed her, as Maggrumph stared at the silhouette they both made against the wall, Clandusprod towering over Maggrumph.
You wouldn't dare.
Margalo began hopefully, but wordlessly Lando stalked his prey and picked Margalo up by her antlers, using his full weight to throw the Maggrumph against the same wall where she slid down the side. I had never seen Lando like this, all the warmth in his eyes replaced by cold disdain and disgust. He seemed to have grown in size by several feet, anger increasing his bulk. He paused.
Ha!
Said Margalo as she looked up.
You wouldn't dare anything. You're such a goody. You care too much about what everyone thinks of you to do anything that might get you into trouble. I can do exactly what I want, and none of you can stop me.
Lando saw red, and walloped to one, good and hard across the antlers. Margalo looked up in shock at him, dazed confusion on her face as he spoke. Don't you ever dare pick on Jake or any of us ever again. Do you hear me? Lando snorted as he leered over her. You can give me all the detentions in the world or expel me to a black hole, but I will never let anyone hurt any of my friends, ever. Do I make myself clear?
You?
Said Margalo, dumbfounded.
But you're a nice one. You wouldn't see these without you, bruv. You're weak. I sassed you.
In desperation, she got out her phone to record what was happening, but Lando picked it up and threw it to her classmates instead. Unfortunately, Robin was nearest and she dropped it, but it didn't seem the worse for wear. Sensing she was outnumbered, Margalo put on a simpering smile.
I've learned my lesson, and I'll never be mean to anyone ever again as long as I live, ever. Now get off me, you big fat lump.
Never mistake being kind for being weak, bellowed Lando at the top of his voice. Being nice means protecting your friends when you need to, whatever the cost, instead of looking the other way. Being kind can mean being fierce in the right situation sometimes. I'm telling you this because you don't have any friends the way you've been behaving, so you won't understand any of this. Now leave all of us, but especially Jake, alone. I will give XXXX back his vouchers along with an extra one of yours to say sorry. Make it a nice Maggrumph cream out look all. He'll like those. And no more copying homework off anyone or getting them to do it for you. Or the next time you feel hungry, I will personally come and make you eat it. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Spluttered Margalo.
Anything you say.
Hand on heart, sir.
Asked Bettina.
Hope your antlers twist and come off.
Hand on heart.
Said Margalo, defeated.
At this time, no twisting your antlers to undo your promise.
No,
Said Margalo,
sorry.
crossing her antlers behind her head.
Please don't hit me. I've just had a rough day.
Oh, so you go around giving other people rough days? That doesn't seem right, said Lando.
No,
Said Margalo thoughtfully.
I suppose it isn't. Nobody's ever stopped me before.
Well, they have now, said Lando, staring down at her antlers. So the moose, Boos. Only Margalo was too upset and broken to move. Suddenly, though, the storm passed, and a wave of empathy went over Lando's face. He seemed to shrink as his usual warm smile came back. Suddenly, though, the storm passed, and a wave of empathy went over Lando's face. He seemed to shrink as his usual warm smile came back. Or even better, pick yourself up, and let's be friends.
Friends?
Escaped Bettina.
We don't want her hanging around.
Yeah, said Hermione.
Go back to the rock you climbed out from and leave us in peace.
If we're going to get along together, we need to put our past behind us, said Lando. Besides, you've had a taste of your own medicine now, haven't you? Margalo nodded.
Nice going,
Said Bettina, slapping Lando on the back.
I never knew you had it in you. I always thought you were a bit of a softie.
Lando shrugged. On Ziggurat's free, no one dares attack a clan member, never mind one of their own. We stick together. They can't attack us when we do that. Reverting to his gentler voice, he asked Jake, Are you hurt, old friend? You're still shaking. Even I'm not sure exactly what's normal in the Glabdiharbit.
No.
He said gratefully.
Only nerves and jelly. Thank you, Lando, so much.
No problem, the Clandusprod said, breaking into a wide smile. What are friends for?
What even is your problem, Margalo?
asked Hermione, trying to help her up.
I mean, why'd you do it? You hung around with us and joined in more when we do our homework. We'd soon find out how to do it. As much as we ever do, anyway.
You can't help me, said Margalo rudely, shoving Hermione's wing away. No one can help me.
I probably can't. It is a well-known fact that Lando can help anyone and everyone, and often does,
replied Hermione.
You clearly have some sort of problem today. You could let him know, if not me. We might be able to help.
Oh, said Margalo, it's just...
My mum is in a bad mood today. She had the most unfortunate accident. She blamed it on me. She said she's not going to let me go on the trip even if I win. And I really wanted to go. I try so hard to be a dutiful daughter, get good grades all the time, work hard. Somehow it's never enough. I wish I was naturally as clever as that flying thing, that robot over there. You actually want to go to a stuffy old museum?
asked Bettina, before a pang of guilt swept across all three faces. Margalo shrugged.
What's wrong? You lot,
she said nonchalantly.
This place was fine when it was just me and Mum, but now it's a lot of you. But I'm still the favourite, okay? I'm still special. I'm the one who gets to go on that mobile trip. It's me who deserves all the passports. It used to be me who was clever. Now you just go out of your way to make me look stupid. You've changed her. She was never like this before we came here. So cold, so callous, so cruel. I don't know what you did to her, but it's all your fault. 100 hungry Habridats on hovercraft, it's not like that,
began Bettina.
We work as hard as we can, so you or your darling mother don't pick on us and tell us we're stupid and need more discipline or something. It's you who cut yourself up from our clan by behaving like that. We'd gladly include you more, but we can't trust you.
Well, said Margalo, crumpled.
I'm exhausted, because I can't even trust myself. I wish I was more like you, more carefree. Less reliant on what others think of me. Oh, you're clever, Margalo,
refused Bettina.
Way brighter than me and special. You've just given up trying because you don't think you are. There's nothing on the birth certificate when you're born that says you have to be clever and well-behaved and get good grades to earn love. When you have an arrangement like that, you're never going to be good enough for someone, no matter what you do. Believe me, I know, because there wasn't anything like that on mine. I also know for a fact you had nothing to do with whatever's put Mrs. Maggrumph in a bad mood. Actually, I'm surprised Mrs. Maggrumph didn't blame us. Whatever it was.
She looked up, trying not to make eye contact with any of us, which isn't easy when you've got 6 eyes. Margalo harumphed, but clearly felt better. Elfrida had one more question, though.
Margalo, why don't you ever talk like other Magrumphs? Outside the lessons, I mean. You know, in short brush sentences. You're positively Camalosian in your speech at times.
Margalo shrugged.
The influence of all you lot, I suspect. Mrs. Emmet was theatre she thought my speech being contaminated by the way the rest of the universe talks. She's always keen for me to talk what we Magrumphs consider proper. But talking this way with you helps me think you like. You're not so bad, you know,
said Bettina, drunk from the glow of popularity and putting her arm round the Maggrumph.
I mean, underneath it all, I wish we'd hung out together more, and you didn't keep running away to wherever it is. You're a member of this class, you know, and one of us, whether you like it or not. We've got your back, even if you don't always have ours. Before you go,
Bettina continued,
I know how it feels to be left out, and we want to make you feel included. Look, I've been wanting to do this properly since Robin got here, and I've not had the chance.
She muttered under her breath.
And if tomorrow goes to plan, it might be the last chance we get. So here, Margaret, join in with our skipping song. We need an even number. We've got that now if our blotchy holds the rope for us.
Belobrat wagged his tail. We took it in turns to hold the ropes for our song, which was a bit of a problem when it ended up being Jake's, Robin's or my own turn, given how much smaller than everyone else we were. Well, technically it was Bettina's skipping song she'd adapted from an old Hellesperian poem, which she was very proud of, and especially excited that she could do it complete for the first time, now we had a real human there. It's nice to feel wanted, boomed Robin.
Won't be saying that when it's your turn to get squashed with a
said Squash. With each verse, another of us ended up jumping on top of a pile of bodies in the playground. Mother, mother, I feel fat, accidentally squashed a Habridat. It must have been that extra tart I had at lunch. I also squashed a Mrasianart. Yes, I said, I already knows you, but I've just squashed an Agrosian. There was a Glabdiharbit underneath. When I sat on him, he gave a squeak. I can't help it. I seem to be Agrosian. I also squashed a Camalosian. What to do? I feel log. I even squashed a Clandusprod. Now I'm really in a fix. I squashed him being from Mekkion 6. Next I sat on for at least a month, a passing local Maggrumph. Not to sound really glooming, but I also squashed a human. But your pardon, Robin, said here. Mother said, but can't be so, you're not fat. As I squashed a Belobrat, she said it's natural, you are compliant. For my child, you are a Doosbury Giant. The game ended with XXXX leaping happily on top of all of us, with a great display of flying fur, antlers, feathers and giggling. I found it most difficult to write while squished under so many bodies, but it was good. Felt like a huge release of tension after all we had been through lately. A last coda for childhood, before the fright and panic of what was to come. I felt we were bonding a little, a bit more as a class now too, perhaps permanently given the way our bodies had now conjoined together. Slowly, still laughing, we peeled off and back onto our feet.
Again!
Yelled Bettina.
No fear,
said Margolo quickly, walking away.
Come on,
Laughed Bettina.
I saw you smile. It did you good, just as it did for all of us.
Margolo frowned,
That was a grimace. Well, I have disrespect.
but she smiled again all the same.
See you later, classmates. I'm going to walk over my homework. I mean your homework you did for me.
She corrected herself, in a small voice added.
Let me know if I can ever help any of you with yours. I'd like to be helpful.
Lando, yelled Robin. I can't believe you did that. It was awesome. The way you stood up for us and knocked Margolo down like a bowling pin. Wham! I can't believe I did that either, said Lando sheepishly. What is everyone going to think of me? Why, they're going to love and respect you for it, of course, said Robin. I know I do. She had what's coming to her good and proper, the little madam. Maybe, said Lando thoughtfully. But Clandusprods aren't meant to do that sort of thing. We're meant to value kindness above everything. We're not meant to lose our tempers no matter what happens. We're meant to be all about unity and community and all that sort of thing. I'd hate to get us all into trouble. No, said Robin. The fact that she even got to you, a calm and placid Clandusprod, makes us all feel better about ourselves. Well, me anyway. Besides, that social rule was established back when none of you had left Zigguras free. It doesn't account for Clandusprods who were forced to flee from their parental clan all the way across the stars and put up with bullying Magrumphs. Maybe, said Lando doubtfully. Look, said Robin, if it helps, you were defending us, not yourself. Do you have such things as patron saints on Zigguras free? Sort of, confessed Lando. There's a Mother Sunshine who's meant to go round to each cave dispensing friendliness to everyone, so we can all live alongside each other in peace and happiness. I guess it's a bit too far to visit me all the way out here, which is why I don't feel happy. Well, said Robin, I'm willing to bet if this Mother Sunshine had spent some time around that Maggrumph, she'd have decked her too, a long time before you. Mused Lando. You see, the thing is, I like Margolo. She's so insecure, and yet she wears her insecurities so much more lightly and freely than me. She's so open about not having any friends, pretending she can cope on her own, which she clearly can't. I just want to pick her up and hug her most of the time, and at others I want to do what I did today. If she did, though, said Robin, that's her lookout, Lando, not yours. You would gladly be friends with her if she was more prepared to be friends with you. Heck, you would be friends with anyone if you wanted to be, even Mrs. Maggrumph. The Clandusprod roared his throaty laugh. Nah, don't go that far, he said, then looked sad. I'm worried none of you will like me now, though, he said. You won't think of me as kind or nice anymore. I'm not clever like Elfrida or Archibald, or charismatic like Bettina, or Hermione, or cute like Jake or XXXX, or interesting like you and Colin. Kindness is pretty much all I have. Oh, Lando, said Robin, putting her arms around him. I know I'm new here, but I can guarantee none of us think like that. If anything, people love you more, well, apart from Margolo, who will respect you instead. She looked up at the Clandusprod and smiled. You don't have to be perfect to be loved, you know. It's not conditional on one outburst. One event doesn't define who you are. Lando sniffed in a suddenly very human-type manner, as if he was trying to wipe earth tears from his face. Thank you, Penguin, he said. I needed that. Before we knew it, the bell was ringing for the next lesson, and we were back inside the same four walls, which somehow felt even more prison-like, even though we were hoping to leave them for good soon.
"Time to act out of blue,"
said Mrs. Maggrumph. We cheered.
Yes! Yay!
"But do you ever Mrs. Maggrumph way?"
No!
We groaned.
"You're the highest adopting universal praise. I should keep you all on your toes. Want to choose?"
she demurred, going through her notes.
"A Belobrat on a hot tin roof? I'm not sure that's class 5 secret. Habridat Gabler, 6 characters in search of an Agrosian. They're hard, would be good for a laugh. Waiting for Glabdiharbit, although it's really more of a skit. I got some of the lost lines and complex words to make you sound extra absurd. How about the Maggrumph wives of Windsor? Or the Belobrat birthday party by Habridat? Do you see strokes? What could be next? Look, Belobrat. Yes, I think we'll stick with that. So lay close to my heart. Colin, you have the main speaking part.
I gaped, my mouth wide open.
No, don't look so pale. I must admit I just want to see you fail. We'll broadcast it live to a load of planets. It wouldn't surprise me if you make them bite. They'll be laughing stock of the universe. And you know what's worse? Got me in the bottom of the jokes for your friends here at Orpheus. No, don't make such a fuss.
She isn't really.
Hissed Archelaus.
She has been recording on pause, but from here it looks as if she could broadcast it to multiple planets. I wonder why she needs something like that.
This made me feel a little better, but by this time I had already turned a deeper shade of green, had dropped all my papers, was hiding under the desk having palpitations. Public speaking? Me? I didn't even like private speaking. 11 planets full of people looking at me, judging me, watching me get things wrong. Not this, anything but this. I shut my eyes, but all I could see were other people's eyes, bearing inside me, getting inside me, breaking me, penetrating through to my soul, seeing me for who I really was, empty, a husk, a walking shell. They pierced me, mocking me with Mrs. Maggrumph' voice, as they tore off layer after layer of my skin, piercing all the defences I had managed to put up for all these years, leaving me with nothing and nowhere to hide from the world. "I don't think he really does speak in parts," said Landa comfortingly. "I'll do it instead." Mrs. Maggrumph shook her head.
"You'll have to learn, the fool. There are no passages in my school."
"But a million mollycoddle Maggrumph on a motorbike,"
interrupted Bettina.
"That's not fair. He has a phobia. You shouldn't be making him do anything he can't do."
"You shouldn't be here at all. It's not your job to have a ball. You do what I tell you to do. My word is law. Now help me stuff these papers into his claw."
"But galloping green Glabdiharbits and galoshes. He didn't ask to be here. Nobody did. It's compulsory."
"Yes," said Lando, "we're here to learn, not to suffer." "Tough," said Mrs. Maggrumph, stuffing papers on my desk and then hauling me up to it.
"You're going to be treated just like the rest. Soon everyone will be staring at you, miserable creature, and sympathising with your poor old teacher for having to put up with scum like you in my school."
"Don't you dare,"
said Bettina.
"or we will get the school inspectors onto you. We'll tell them everything you've made us do, and have you sacked."
Mrs. Maggrumph snorted.
"Don't talk so wild. You don't have proof. It's my word against yours. You're only a child. Be quiet until you're allowed to speak. I want everyone to think how this Camalosian seems weak."
By now I was rocking backwards and forwards, my claws over my eyes, trying to shut everyone and everything out.
No,
so Mrs. Grumpus continued.
"What to do? It's only a few little lines. I bet everyone else will do just fine. We'll get a full 10 minutes rehearsal, but bear in mind the performance will be Whistle. Robin can play your wife. This will probably cause a similar strife."
She stuffed a second load of paper in front of Robin, who didn't seem to be paying attention, was by now looking most concerned at me. I got up from my desk, to be sick into the flower pot.
"Back at your desk," Mrs. Maggrumph said. "I didn't say you could leave. Now sit back down. I'll begin to read."
"Artichoke eating algebras. Can't you see what stress you're putting him under? He's really ill,"
complained Bettina. "Colin," said Robin, leaving a desk and holding one side of me as I near convulsed. "I'm with you. It's going to be fine. We won't laugh at you, or hate you, or judge you." Lando was by the other side, stroking me, calming me down. It's all right, Colin, he said. We're friends.
We believe in you, Colin.
Yelled Bettina.
I really do think you ought to leave him alone.
Stammered Margalo.
He really does look awfully pale. All of you back to your seats,
demanded Mrs. Maggrumph.
or you'll get nothing more for the rest of the day to eat. What do you think of that, eh?
XXXX, who was halfway out of his chair, sat down again, looking miserable. Slowly, reluctantly, my friends withdrew and went back to their seats. Shaking, I reached for my papers and mouthed the lines wordlessly.
Speak up, you stupid reptile. We're going to be here for a while. I am not going to this class sermon until you read it through to the very end. I'm also recording it for posterity, so everyone I ever can see.
Cackled Mr. Maggrumph, enjoying every second.
Look at him, so weak and pale. I can't wait to see you fail.
Somehow, though, throughout the murk in my head, I still heard my classmates' comforting, soothing voices. This had been my nightmare for all of my life, of having the spotlight thrust on me. But maybe it was time I confronted it. I was amongst friends. Well, friends and one bitter enemy who'd rubbish what I did or said anyway, but mostly amongst friends. I was as safe as I was ever going to be. And I knew Mrs. Maggrumph was only going to escalate things and make them worse if I didn't do this. Using the strength I gained from them, I somehow managed to find my voice. Hesitatingly, struggling, still wishing I was dead, yet somehow proud of myself, I somehow found my way to the words, and spoke. So foul and fair a day I have not seen, since my scales had turned green. Fain of Clandusprod in borrowed robes, that cover up your spots and droves. You lead a role that's charmed, you Belobrat with your 6 arms. Our days may be short, a tiny flame, but I walk through darkness all the same. A mere actor, a walking shadow am I, yet still I yearn to see the sky. As I spread my eyes across the nation, the 11 planets in orbiting rotation, a tale told by an idiot, signifying nothing. No wonder I am incapable of loving. To sound and fury am I leaning, for my life it has no meaning. A hybrid creature I became, like Belobrat, my rightful name, the Camalosprod that time forgot, and so I say, out down Clandusprod spot. By now the class was in shock. None more than I, except perhaps Mrs. Maggrumph, whose jaw was agape, her finger still on her recording device. The room burst into spontaneous applause and cheering, while Bettina saluted me with her 6 arms.
You see,
She glared at the teacher.
we always had faith. Now it's you that looks stupid.
Bobby glared at Mrs. Maggrumph. For one moment I thought she was going to grow antlers and rub with Mrs. Maggrumph right there and then. Instead she fixed her elder with a stare and said, "You won't win, you know. Bullies never do. You have one last chance to leave us alone, or get out of our school." The bell rang. Mrs. Maggrumph looked cowed, but not defeated.
I want everyone back after the break, when I will punish the smallest mistake. I can't wait to see if you will break.
But despite her words, the fire was gone from her eyes. Everyone got up to leave silently, leaving her staring into space.
Colin,
Said Bettina.
that was incredible. The look on her face when you spoke up without slipping up on a word. My days, I hope she filmed it and broadcast it to every being that ever lived.
She did she? I stuttered, my social anxiety returning.
Not a bit of it.
Said Bettina.
Archelaus explained how the device works and she never pressed record. She's all mouth and marvellous, that woman. We have the measure of her now. We're unbeatable. We're amazing. We're the best pupils there's ever been.
Margalo had walked up to me and was putting a hand on my arm.
I'm sorry.
She said.
I don't know what that was about, or why she was picking on me. She's always done that to those she thinks are weak, which is why I've tried so very hard to seem strong. I think she might actually be getting worse.
Robin came up and hugged me. "You are superb," she said. "You have a really nice speaking voice, you know. I've been looking forward to hearing it again." Lando was next. "Are you all right? I was so worried," he asked, hugging me so tightly without waiting for a response. I thought my larynx was about to break anyway.
My goodness,
Said Hermione, laughing and patting me on the
but I didn't know you had it in you.
I did.
said Elfrida, shyly smiling.
Good on you, Colin. We're the class that just keeps surprising. They can never write us off.
XXXX Charlie walked up and handed me some of his favourite Doosiest crackers.
For you,
He said,
You deserve them.
You were so brave.
Squeaked Jake, snuggling up to me.
However did you do it?
You defeated her at her own game like the most bestest and brilliantest game of chess ever,
Said Archulus, beaming.
fact.
Rather good old sword.
Said Squash, doffing the cap I'm sure I'd never seen him wearing before.
Top hole, spiffing, lovely jubbly.
Thank you, I croaked, suddenly more self-conscious than I'd been reading aloud, now that everyone was looking at me and seemed to be expecting me to do something brilliant. I felt sick again. Said Lando, catching my eye. Everyone stand back and leave him alone. Let's go out for that walk. Someone bring Blotchy. Out the corner of my eye, I could see Bettina obeying, despite being unused to taking orders.
So what are we going to do, gang?
Everyone looked at Bettina.
We can't go on like this. We can't all come up trumps like good old Colin did here today. She's going to make one of us crack eventually. We can't let that happen.
Elfrida walked forward, Blitchy nipping at her wings.
There's something going on, and it's right in front of the school. We have to get there somehow.
She looked up to see Margalo trailing along at the back.
Do we tell her?
She whispered, pointing.
She has a right to know.
No what?
Asked Margalo brightly. Bettina thought for a second or two, looked round at everyone, then asked.
Margalo, are you happy here?
She shrugged.
Not really.
Do you want to stay here?
Not particularly.
She shrugged.
Even if it meant leaving your mother behind.
She shrugged again, less hard and dismissively this time. She stared at the floor as if thinking this over.
Maybe. And where would I go instead?
Bettina weighed up her options one last time, then plunged in.
Margalo,
She said, unusually serious.
we think we might all be in grave danger. We don't know what's going on, but something is.
Hermione interrupted.
Before we tell you, you weren't telling us, were you? We're only telling you because we want to keep you safe too. We can't do that while keeping things from you.
Bettina chimed in again.
This is for your good as much as ours, but it will all be ruined if either teacher even gets a word of this.
You're not kidding me, are you?
She said. She looked up at Hermione.
This isn't a Habridat prank, is it? There isn't a hidden camera somewhere, apart from the obvious ones in plain sight.
Habridat shook her head.
We're deadly serious.
Margalo looked at all of us in turn and gulped.
All right, I promise. Cross my antlers and hope to fry in a Doosbury dish, shaped like a pie.
This was indeed a universal solemn oath amongst playgrounds the universe over, as we all knew. I looked at her head and registered that she had indeed left her antlers uncrossed. Elfrida spoke next.
Margalo,
She said.
did you know that we have a headmaster?
No.
She said, shocked, her eyes crossed.
Wait a minute. I have heard voices I didn't recognise from my hiding place. I don't know who they were. Too often.
One would be a mysterious Belobrat,
Said Bettina.
the other a shady Clandusprod. Did you ever happen to look into any of the rooms at the back when visiting your mum?
Margalo frowned.
No?
She said.
Well, I didn't start. That's the only room she'd ever meet me in. It's well plush. Not like our hall. The other rooms were serious and not to be touched, I was told.
Archulus got out his camera.
This is what happens in those rooms.
He said. Margalo's eyes widened as she saw all the test tubes and the monitors and everyone's names written on a board, not to mention all the security feeds from all the cameras, including the one trained on her.
Seriously?
She said.
So that's what all those cameras are doing now. Nobody would ever tell me what they were for when I asked, so I just assumed it was some dumb grown-up reason. Why go to so much trouble?
We don't know,
Said Elfrida boldly.
but we don't think it's good.
Margalo, said Robin, did anyone ever give you anything weird to take? Food or a pill? Probably something red.
No.
Said Margalo falteringly.
Did they give any to you?
Perhaps. Logic based on all the evidence would dictate a hypothesis that we are part of some grand experiment on behalf of a disreputable company.
Said Archulus, pausing.
Only we don't know exactly how yet or why. This isn't so much a fact as a hypothesis.
Oh no.
Said Hermione, rolling her eyes.
This is the start of a whole new catchphrase, and I'm still heartily sick of the old one.
What do we do? Asked Margalo.
We escape.
Said Bettina. The
First chance we get.
But there's no way out.
Said Margalo.
I know the grounds, and, well, basically this is all there is on the planet. There's nowhere to go.
Elfrida smiled.
We don't escape on this planet. We escape on Decreeta tomorrow, and we all go on that trip.
Margalo looked confused, so Robin related her experiences of the night before as succinctly as she could. The walking conversation took us right up to the edge of the yard, beyond which the class wasn't meant to go, as far away from prying adult eyes as cameras as we could manage. I showed off all my notes, including the ones where we'd overheard Mrs. Maggrumph talking about leaving Margalo behind with the others. The young Maggrumph was visibly shocked, and yet somehow not surprised, as if we were only telling her something that, in her antler of antlers, she already knew.
The problem is,
said Bettina thoughtfully,
this is a big step. We need to be absolutely, positively sure. And once we are sure, there's something we really ought to do before we go. And the proof we need is over there, on the other side of the school. I'm sure of it. Do you know of any way to get there?
Not this time,
said Margalo quickly.
And Mickey's on caretaker at certain hours when he's asleep. He's awake and sorting out the bins now. I can see him.
Well, we can at least see the front of the school from here, said Lando. Is it safe? Are they monitoring us right now? Look at that, said Robin. A huge satellite dish. Why is that there? No one seemed to know.
Will it be sea-shell?
Shrugged Hermione.
If so, it's pretty useless, despite being so massive. It badly needs reinstalling. Our picture's always going off station.
Bettina squeezed her head through a hedge.
Will you look at that?
She said.
I see him right now.
Who?
Asked Hermione.
The Freyed Master. He's quite tall, even for a Belobrat.
What is he doing?
Taking in a delivery.
Of what?
I don't know, do I? I can't see. Like some of you, I don't have roulet vision, and I definitely can't see through plants.
We all took turns speaking, but none of us could see any more than Bettina could. I've got an idea, I said, surprising everyone by speaking up. Let Blotchy off his lead, then we'll try and go and get him. We have an excuse then for what we were up to, and if that doesn't work, maybe he'll drop something, and we'll see what it is. Bettina grinned and slapped me on the back before dropping Blotchy's lead and whispering in his ear.
Right, boy, see that man over there? Go and bite him.
The Argibraph wandered off happily, barking away, straight to the three-head master.
Do you know, I think he really is getting smarter and smarter with every day, said
Bettina proudly.
That's our good teaching, that is.
Blotchy ran up to the Belobrat unseen, sniffed his ankles, then sank his teeth into them.
Ouch!
Cried the stranger.
I know that stupid animal was a bad idea.
Bottles upon bottles of red weed dropped out of his hands and came crushing to the floor in huge quantities. Some of them even rolled over to where we were hidden. Alfredia nudged Jake to go and get one of them near to his foot, being the smallest and least easiest to see, which he did, rolling a bottle over to Archulus, who quickly pocketed it and put it into his special dimensionally transcendent bag.
It's safe with me,
he whispered.
Who let the Algebra out?
Cried the three-head master. Asked Blotchy merrily, dancing round his legs while the man kicked out at him.
Hill boy,
called Bettina quickly, not wanting to see him get hurt.
Oh, where has that Algebra got to? He could be anywhere,
she asked in a loud voice, as if she'd only just made it to the end of the yard that second. Blotchy rolled his way back to them, happily yapping. This is the most fun he'd had in days. The class walked their way back to the great hall and sat down on the lip of the doorway, their backs to the building.
Right, Archie,
said Bettina.
Show us what you've got.
He'd found a bottle of red weed, like the ones that Clandusprod had been distributing.
Funny though,
said Archulus.
It was almost as if the delivery was being taken out of the school, not towards it.
What really surprised us, though, was that the label came with a name. Squashes. Beside it were the words, prescription for over-aggressive personality. They all looked at him confused.
You haven't been taking this, have you?
Archulus asked the Agrosian, panicked.
Lovely morning.
He said, raising his cap.
Lovely day, isn't it?
Squash,
said Bettina, trying to word her next sentence carefully.
Do you remember ever being given any of this stuff before?
No, madam.
He smiled.
I've never seen this stuff before in my life. Is it good?
You've never eaten it, or taken pills of it?
No.
His face clouded over.
Should I, Mummy? Can I have a sweetie straight afterwards?
Do you feel angry about anything?
Asked Elfrida.
Hardly, dear heart.
Squash replied.
Not on a lovely morning like this, when the Zula birds are singing and the two suns are shining. Oh, it's going to be a lovely day.
Oh no, whispered Lando to the others, breaking a long silence. What with all the fuss about ventilation shafts and homework and mad teachers, we've been looking in the wrong direction. Squash has changed personality before our eyes. We hadn't even noticed.
Squash,
Asked Elfrida.
do you feel all right?
Never better.
He grinned.
Thank you most kindly for asking, madam. What time's the next meal again? Is there honey still for tea? I'm getting most hungry.
Me too.
Said XXXX.
Well, at least one of us is still acting normal.
Said Hermione, but nobody was listening. Oh, Squash, said Lando, what have they done to you? Archelaus concluded.
It must be the breeding of the royal Agrosians who see the province falling away. They must have given him this red stuff and it devolved his personality back to what it used to be, back when his was a peaceful and gentle race. As much as that used to be what the Agrosians were like, well, isn't what Squash was like. We shouldn't have changed him without at least consulting him.
So what exactly is in it, Archie?
Asked Elfrida, putting a comforting wing around him.
I'm not sure yet. What I really need is another bottle
Said Archelaus.
to compare it to. Seeing it's just for Squash's benefit, or all of us, and seeing the others are activated by something or not.
How horrible, said Lando. I feel awful. I really should have noticed. Bettina comforted him.
We all should.
What's more, said Robin, are they going to poison us too? Are we going to end up like that? I like who we are,
Maybe.
said Elfrida sadly.
They already have. The change in Squash was so gradual, wasn't it? So much so we didn't notice it.
The thing is, though,
Archelaus mused.
why now? The Agrosian has been here a while after all. He was here before me.
Elfrida shrugged.
Maybe his physiology is just more susceptible to its influence than ours. He's quite tiny, so a dose of that red stuff running through his bloodstream would be more powerful than it would in ours.
No,
Said Archelaus.
it's somehow more than that. It's as if something turned the red weed on inside his body and made it start working. For what? What does Squash do differently to the rest of us?
Get squashed? Asked Lando, checking him for bumps. Oh, he seems all right. Leave him alone for now, said Lando, pressing his back. He's got a fever, poor thing.
Right,
Said Bettina, looking serious.
this is too big for us to deal with. Archie, do you still have that number for the doctor's thing?
Mekkion nodded.
Margalo,
Bettina continued.
can I borrow your phone?
Yes, she said, surprised but still bringing it out of her pocket.
I was wondering why you never carried one.
We weren't allowed, said Lando. Mine got confiscated when I first came, but grown-ups probably considered it too much of a risk in case we contacted the outside world, but they thought you were safe to still have yours.
Who are you going to call?
Asked Margalo.
First of all, the doctor. Now,
Said Bettina.
who do we get to call? Do we draw lots for it?
DODECHOHEDRONSPELLSOUT.
Said Archelaus, beginning to count with his robotic arm.
Oh, I'm not going through all that again.
Complained Elfrida.
Let me do it.
Putting on the best grown-up voice, she began speaking to us.
Ahoy, boy! This is the senior principal in charge of Orpheus. No, wait, Orpheus School. I have ascertained that our educational establishment was due to be inspected today, only nobody turned up. Would you please kindly put me through to the relevant authority?
Elfrida seems really grown up, whispered Robin. The way she talks to adults, I could never do that. She seems really tall for her age too, based on what I know of Mrasianart.
Yes,
Archelaus whispered back.
I think all the Mrasianarts tend to hang around with adults rather than play with other children. It was a bit of a culture shock when Elfrida first got here, apparently. She kept trying to walk into the staff room because she thought the teachers were the pupils and she was their teacher. She's not sure why she's so tall. She's wondered if she had some distant Doosbury Giant ancestry in there somewhere.
Whoa,
Whispered Bettina out loud.
that's witchcraft. You sounded just like them.
Hermione looked at Elfrida with one eye open.
Are you sure you're one of us, Elfrida? A youngster, I mean. You seem so grown up sometimes.
It's my special skill.
She shrugged.
Mrasianites tend to seem older and more serious when they're younger. Right, give me that number. Let's get this over with.
Bettina handed the phone to Elfrida.
Right, try and get the doctor to come as soon as he can.
Really, dear?
Squash beamed.
That would be absolutely lovely of you, Spiffy.
Soon Elfrida was on the phone to Dr. Hooster, Originally from my homeworld, Camalosian, but now a leading specialist on hospital planet Medicus, and putting on her best adult voice, describing Squash's symptoms or patting the Agrosian on the arm.
Well, listen to him, Doctor. Is this how an Agrosian should talk?
Squash lifted up an imaginary captive phone and doffed it.
Good evening, dear Doctor. It is most exceedingly wonderful that you should be up at this hour. I'm eternally grateful for your services.
I see what you mean, said the doctor, worried. I will come at once, probably tomorrow.
Most kind,
said Squash.
No hurry. Take your time. Bye. Don't be a stranger.
Well done, Alfredo.
Beamed Bettina.
I couldn't have done better myself. Well, almost. Right,
asked Hermione.
that's one thing sorted. What's next? Ofsted,
said Bettina, consulting the paper.
the official faculty for the standard of testing by educated Doosburys. They're the people in charge of inspecting schools across the known inhabited universe. Let's tell them it's an emergency and get them to come tomorrow too. I just hope they don't come at the same time.
She took the phone, dialed the second number, and handed it back to the Mrasianart. Elfrida spoke on the phone in her best voice again, pretending to be Orpheus's governess, making sure that she was first asked about the weather.
Because grown-ups always do that.
She added later.
I don't know why they should care about it more than we do. I guess they're taller, so their heads must be nearer the clouds.
Apparently the Doosbury Giants on Ofsted had never heard of their school,
That's a surprise.
mocked Hermione, and didn't know why they had never been inspected. Elfrida haggled with them to make our school a priority, and they agreed to come the next day in return for a selection of local pastries from our local cuisine.
The food replicators will do.
Elfrida heard to her relief. Asking who they should meet on the premises, Elfrida managed to stall them.
Just turn up unannounced,
She said,
I think it's only right and proper that you should see what our lessons are like at random, without us knowing who's going to be taking them. Oh, and be sure to take a good look at the state of our facilities on your way past, especially the grounds. If you can navigate your way through the giant cracks out front caused by all the earthquakes we seem to keep having.
the only sticking point came when Elfrida had to give an address.
Orpheus?
She said,
Well, it's just on the tip of my tongue. Yes, of course I know where it is. It's just slipped my mind. You know, as it's so full of facts and information for the kiddywinkles.
She got off the phone and said,
Help!
to Hermione.
Fly up to that sign outside the hall window and see if it says anything.
Elfrida stalled until Hermione came flying back.
Well,
Asked Elfrida.
what does it say?
Orpheus,
Said the Habridat.
Not helpful.
Hissed the Mrasianart back. Wait, said Margalo.
I think I remember from when my mum got the job. Give the phone here.
Just passing you to my secretary.
Said Elfrida quickly and handed the phone over to Margalo, who grunted the address.
Orpheus School, Bright Orpheus, Sun Arcturus, Constellation Beta.
Then she read all sorts of digits and numbers that only made sense in Maggrumphian, and I didn't have the translator.
You can't miss it. It's the only building here.
She handed the phone back to the Mrasianart.
I only remember those numbers because I've just read them.
Explained Margalo.
Short-term memories are great for the grubs. Long-term, not so much. So just don't ask me for the address another day, okay?
My name?
Elfrida was asked.
Elfrida Mrasianart. Oh, you haven't got me on your list of qualified teachers? Of course, I've changed my name since then. Or my species. Yes, it was a delicate operation, thanks for asking. I know the first name begins with M. Let's say I'm Molly Maggrumph. Come and ask for me. Yes, that's right, I don't sound like a Maggrumph, do I? Why, all education and learning and hanging around my very talented class, they come from all over the universe. Right, I must go, I've got some, biscuits to eat in the staff room. Oh, you too. Those ring ones are nice, aren't they? I love a good Clandusprod rich tea myself. I always all these boring, bland, grown-up foodstuffs with all the taste and chocolate and sugar taken out of them because we have none of our taste buds left. I so look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a very safe journey. Avoid those beast skyroads if you can. They're murder this time of year. Someone should really do something about them.
Hesitating, she asked.
How's your mortgage doing? Oh, me too. What are these salaries? Don't make me laugh.
And she chortled.
I do so hope the weather stays fine for you during your visit. Goodbye.
Hesitating, she concluded.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do now.
To think, whispered Robin. We'll all sound like that one day when we grow up. There was a series of worried nods from all of her classmates.
Right,
Elfrida said to her impressed classmates, hanging up the phone.
that's all sorted then. Let's hope they turn up and ask to see Mrs. Maggrumph' class and see what the education standards are really like on this planet. We've often said that we don't feel as if she's a proper teacher. I guess now we'll find that out for certain.
Whoa, said
Bettina, slapping her on the back.
Habridat horseradish. You're the adult whisperer, Elfrida. However did you do that? Think like one of them, I mean. You captured them perfectly. Adults always seem so alien.
She shrugged.
I'm glad I've been able to play my part in this properly at last. I felt bad not being able to contribute.
The bell rang for their final lesson of the day. Bettina sighed.
Now it's our turn to be really grown up and face another Maggrumph lesson. We'd better go in, or people will get suspicious.
She turned to Margalo.
I'm sorry, but you'd probably better go inside separately, or people will wonder why you suddenly developed so many bad influences from us.
Right, she said, grinning. See you indoors, friends. And wandered in.
Can we trust her, do you think?
Asked Bettina.
I don't think we have a choice.
Snorted Hermione.
I hate not knowing who to trust. It's everything I feared about becoming grown up.
The others trooped inside more slowly, Squash doffing his cap on his way in.
Charmed,
He said to Mrs. Maggrumph. Robin and I were last. Don't worry, Colin, she said. We won't let her speak like that to you again. You're safe. You too, I managed to whisper. Won't let them hurt you.
You're late,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
I'm looking rough. My timing's just not good enough. Now that's enough distraction. It's time for music.
The class cheered.
Talk like it's about fractions.
The class groaned.
This semester it's music from 20th century Earth, which gave the current trend for intergalactic music its birth. We shall be discussing it using the words that Alan's archives, music analysis, which comes in a hefty size. However, each piece will be discussed in terms of pitch, timbre, meter, and motion. There is no running out to discuss feelings and emotion. I want you to ignore the words too, and sing with me as I go. Dooby-dooby-doo. Robin, as our classmate from Earth, I really think it's time to show your worth.
Mrs. Maggrumph leafed through a collection of AAA music books, now on the 97th reprint, and are still only 42 Quilts music fans. Seeing which of the 30 surviving artists from Earth in the 20th century she would choose. Finally she settled on Pink Floyd, and pulled out an album titled The Wall, particularly the hit single about bricks and education.
You, Earth girl,
she said to Robin,
as part of your music theory, do explain what this piece means to me, you.
Well, said Robin falteringly, I remember this piece from my days back home. It was the last number one of the 1970s, and the first of the 1980s, the first real song to give children their voice. It blames poorly established education systems that incite feelings of dread and fear in pupils, when really education should be a good thing, a chance to be free and curious and interested and learn about the great insights of the universe to better help us navigate our own lives in the future. So many of Roger Waters' teachers were ex-soldiers who nearly died in the Second World War, and they resented the fact that their own education had been interrupted and their innocence lost. So they took their resentment out on the children who hadn't had to live through it and who they saw as privileged and less deserving than their fallen classmates, which was all deeply unfair, as it wasn't the children who had gone to war at all, but the grown-ups. We saw similar things on Earth in the great COVID epidemic of the 21st century and the hiccup fever of the 22nd century. To me, Roger Waters is speaking from the heart about how the difficulties he went through as a child at school really had an impact on turning him into a paranoid, terrified adult, when his life might have been different if he'd been shown love, plus his fear that making him resentful of those who didn't have to go through what he did only made him pass this feeling on to the next generation after him. You see, the failed education system is one of many bricks he feels goes into completing a wall that makes him closed off and defensive as an adult, unable to come to embrace humanity with an open, loving heart the way he did naturally as a child before his teachers got hold of him and made him distrustful. People assume that it's critical of all education, but it isn't. It's really a song about the way education is taught and how brilliant and life-affirming it could be if it was all about learning for learning's sake, rather than stuffing children's heads full of information they don't need to know, which makes them resentful about knowing anything, and turning people's birthright of access to education for all into a competition that only a few can ever win. It's got a great guitar solo from David Gilmour too, that he used to play on top of a wall built across the stage in concert, made up of cardboard bricks, so he was hundreds of feet in the air. We were all quite impressed with this summary, even Elfrida, who secretly considered us a class of dimwits sometimes when it came to the art. I could tell.
Despicable,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
and mostly not applicable. I can't believe that you're real. Music isn't about what makes you think or feel. I'm only interested in where the notes go on the page. I don't mean any about them the age. Wrong. Do it again. And next time, use your brain.
Sorry, said Robin, shaken despite her attempts not to show it. I did my best.
Well, it's a house point,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
We're not trying hard. Anyone else want to have a go at the, is it another brick in the schoolyard?
Wall, corrected Robin automatically, instantly regretting it.
I don't find your corrections very fruitful,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
Remember, I'm a teacher, you are the pupil. Only you are here to learn. I, on the other hand, am here to earn.
She gets paid for this?
Mouthed Hermione, thankfully unseen.
You,
she said as XXXX froze, mid-snack.
Doosbury Giant, let's hope that you are much more combined.
XXXX stood up and spoke.
Well, I'm not very good at this, but I will try to use the references I know. The song made me feel like school dinners,
he said,
dripping down my insides. The relentless beat reminded me of the stabbing pain I get when I eat too much ice cream. The slightly crazy guilty feeling in the vocals made me feel as if I'd eaten too many sandwiches in one sitting. Most of the song made me feel as if I was trapped in a tub of butter that was slowly suffocating me, but the final guitar burst made me feel suddenly better, as if I'd just burped. It was like a really good pudding at the end of a nutritious but not very tasty meal.
XXXX sat down.
Awful,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? Mine is a house point for you too. Return to your seat.
Next she pointed at me. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I tried writing my thoughts down, but the teacher wasn't accepting any papers.
Failed,
she said.
You didn't cite another source or a right. This song's all about how great education is. You all just missed the point.
Belobrat badges on bicycles. It's not us that's missed the point,
hissed Bettina from the side of the third head, and who had perfected the art of barely using a voice.
You,
the teacher suddenly barked.
Mekkion, stand up and show us how it's done.
Archibald stood up and coughed.
I believe the song is in the key of D minor. The tempo sounds as if it is in 4/4 or common time. I do believe that there is a choir of hatchling earthlings singing during the chorus, alongside guitar, bass, drums and a synthesizer playing.
Archibald shrugged apologetically to Robin as he sat down.
Much better,
Mrs. Maggrumph beamed.
Now that's how music should be taught. As a science, not an art or a sport. Now,
said Mrs. Maggrumph,
we're going to play it without exception. I expect immediate perfection.
It took Pink Floyd weeks of rehearsal and multiple demos to get this song right. We've only been given a minute, sighed Robin, to no one in particular, as everyone was handed out a different instrument. I had a kazoo, which was no good to me if I couldn't speak or get air to come out of my lungs, but I could at least sort of squeak through it, and at least it left me a spare hand for writing this all down. Robin had a mouth organ. Lando had a tiny triangle. Bettina, 3 tubas. Elfrida, a sitar. Hermione, a nose flute. XXXX had a piccolo. Jake was struggling to play a rather large cello. Archulus had a zither. Margala had a violin she was playing with her antlers. Squash was under a huge drum, but had rolled on top of him.
Now play,
said Mrs. Maggrumph. There was a pause.
Why the delay?
A gazillion galumphing Glabdiharbits,
exploded Bettina.
We don't have the music, we don't have the words, there's no one keeping us together or starting us off.
No, I'm not,
carried on Mrs. Maggrumph.
Remember Decreeta's maths, play it in fractions, Belobrat.
You would grant me access to the school's universal. I think I can get the sheet music from there,
said Archelaus. Mrs. Maggrumph nodded, and suddenly lots of paper came out of his tummy, where he had installed a giant printer. Very useful, admired Robin. I wish I could do that.
Thank you,
grinned Archelaus.
It is useful, although I've learned to be very wary of paper cuts.
Don't think you will always get to use the universal to get a result,
Mrs. Maggrumph replied.
You won't be able to use it all the time when you're an adult.
Yes, we can.
Frowned Bettina.
We'll have more access to it when we're adults, any time we like.
You're not always going to have it all planned,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
You can't always have something planned.
Yes, we can,
said Archelaus.
Literally. I mean, it's a chip that gets injected into the hand near birth. You can't take it out again.
Excuse me,
asked XXXX politely.
I can't tell if that's a hemi-demi semi-quaver I meant to play, or a quaver crumb that's part of my lunch I've dropped on my sheet music.
I need to stop this desecration of school property,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
Unless you want to buy everything off me from now on, all uses of a food replicator machine will be rationed. After a fashion, we have researched the best diet for all of you, down to the last kilojoule. There's enough there to keep you from starvation, while aiding concentration.
Our faces fell.
Food was the only good thing we had left,
said Hermione bitterly. Poor XXXX began to wail.
Even for Doosbury Giants, our diets are compliant,
said Mrs. Maggrumph.
They've been catered for every need, so there are no excuse for more greed.
XXXX sat down, his shoulders heaving so hard I thought he might start making like a human and cry. Lando, who was sitting next to him, moved over and put a comforting hand on his shoulder and tried to soothe him.
Breakfast and snacks are the only thing that gets me through this,
XXXX said, eating great handfuls. Mrs. Maggrumph huffed.
No comforting, he needs to learn to stand on his 2 fat feet. You Clandusprod, back to your seat.
Reluctantly, Lando pulled away. Would you mind if I acted as a sort of conductor? Asked Robin nervously, trying to distract her before the teacher got anyone else into trouble. Mrs. Maggrumph had disappeared inside her desk and was just putting her headphones on.
Whatever,
she said.
I only care about it if I can tick my curriculum box.
She put a hand up to her head.
Wait, what am I wearing a ball?
Robin stood at the front, attempting not to laugh, but failing, and tried to count us in. If in doubt, follow Archelaus, she said. I'm guessing he's got naturally perfect time. Everybody ready? A 1, a 2. It was an awful noise. Some people came in on 1, some on 2, others waited for 3, 4, 5, or 6. Wait, said Robin, maybe we should agree on a numbering system. Does anyone have a favourite number?
Yes,
said Archelaus. Oh, good, said Robin. What is it?
42,800,793. It's my lucky number.
There was a pause. Does anyone have anything smaller? Robin asked.
I'm good with 3,
suggested Bettina. Right, said Robin. 1, 2, 3, go! We made a sound that was, if not exactly melodious, but at least less offensive to the ears. A few more run-throughs later, and we almost had something. It didn't sound much like the record, admittedly, but it sounded like its own thing, and we were having fun playing. As so often happened when you have lots of people playing independently, but sort of together, it was as if an extra being was conjured out of nowhere, playing alongside us as we worked together. Everyone forgot their differences and their problems, and this awful, awful school we were stuck with, and this awful, awful teacher, on this awful, awful planet, just for a few precious minutes. I saw what my classmates looked like when they were smiling, many of them for the first time since I got here. Mrs. Maggrumph, however, wasn't listening. She was busy reading, with her feet up and a mug of cocoa in each hand, while we did all the work for her. Finally she got up and announced to the class that it was time to stop, just as we got to the solo. Robin hadn't noticed and was still busy waving her arms in the air, so Mrs. Maggrumph went to tap her on the shoulder. She pushed a little too hard, and Robin half fell on top of Blotchy, who was snoozing on the sidelines. Overbalancing into the overgrown vegetable patch on the windowsill, and desperate not to fall, Robin clutched at the nearest thing to help her stay upright, which happened to be her teacher's antlers. Sorry, said Robin as the teacher toppled over. Mrs. Maggrumph picked herself up, with steam coming out of her ears, and not from the cocoa, while Robin backed away.
I suppose you think that's a good laugh, do you, knocking over a member of staff, and a quadrillion lines, and see me later, and you're banned from eating the food replicators. I've never known someone be so wicked, feral and wild. Sit down and shut up, you lazy, stupid child.
I am not lazy, and I am not stupid, yelled Robin in visible despair. I'm just wired oddly. I can't help losing my balance. I would never mean to hurt anyone, even you. The classroom went still in shock at one of us having spoken out against the mad Mrs. Maggrumph, and even more considering that it was Robin who had said it. You're just thick, yelled back Mrs. Maggrumph, punctuating each exclamation mark with her antlers.
You make me sick. You are mentally out of my reach. Impossible to teach. I'm going to make your life a living hell. You've one last chance before you get expelled.
No, not here too, Robin wailed, shaking her forehead at the teacher before putting her head in her hands. I thought this planet would be more forward than mine. I thought alien minds might understand.
What do you mean? You're always last. You can't even do the most basic of tasks. You mess up even when standing still. I really to think you're mentally ill,
asked Mrs. Maggrumph.
By any species you are dim. This really is a bubble pin.
I am not dim. Robin was screaming now. She looked up through her hands. Don't you see? I'm not lazy, and I'm not stupid. I'm actually very, very clever. Borderline genius, in fact. For any species, well, maybe not the Mekkions or Mrasianarts, but everyone else. It's just that sometimes messages get lost somewhere between my brain and my body.
I don't understand,
sniffed the teacher.
Everyone else can follow instructions as planned. It was yesterday in PE, yesterday with glue. Your handwriting is truly shocking. Everything I make you do, you seem to be blocking. I give you another chance, now you make a solid dance. So tell me, what's so special about you?
It's my dyspraxia, explained Robin as patiently as she could while agitated and still knocking things off her desk in panic. I try to do what everybody else does, but I can't always do it. That doesn't mean I'm not trying or that I'm not clever enough to do it, but that it's harder for me because as well as doing the task, I'm trying to think about a zillion other things people don't have to, like keeping my balance or where my tongue is in my mouth or where my pen is in relation to the paper or where algebraists are sleeping.
You're dumb, said Mrs. Maggrumph. There's no need to carry on. It's worse to pretend you are clever. Life won't let you get away with that forever.
No, all but screamed Robin. Believe me, something inside is broken like any other injury. Only because it's in my head, you can't see it. Take a lamp. If the circuits are slightly loose, then nothing will happen when you try to turn it on, no matter how bright the bulb might be. But throwing the bulb away or pressing on the button to make it come on any harder isn't going to work. I can't do what other people do, especially what other species do. Robin's voice was uncharacteristically firm and steady, right up until the last part where she faltered. I just need longer to line everything up to make the bulb come on, and some patience and understanding that it's harder to make mine come on than other people's. I'd never seen Mrs. Maggrumph as angry as she looked as she stood there, with her arms folded.
I like this story. Your excuses are beginning to bore me.
She pointed to where Blotchy was sitting quietly, a worried look on his face.
Go and stand in the corner, over a veritable before, and stand still, or I'll show you how it feels to be ill.
Robin stood up and stamped her foot in rage. But that's what caused all the trouble in the first place. I am enough, just the way I am, broken as I may be, but that doesn't matter. Always used to let adults boss me around, but not anymore. My class have helped me see that I am worthy of love, or at least less detentions. We all are. We never did anyone any harm. Mrs. Maggrumph eyed her coldly.
You don't know why you always have to pick a fight. You should know by now that adults are always right.
Not this time, said Robin, suddenly anxious, but still standing her ground. You just think you're always right, and as you have all the power, there is no one around to tell you you're wrong.
But I shall go with Mr. Clandusprod. I'm telling you that your behaviour is really odd. He will back me up, I know. And the rest of you, Margot.
Margot opened her mouth to speak, but Robin spoke with such force over her that she stopped again. Adults always stick together, but what about children? What have we got to listen to us? We're always being persecuted, century after century, on every planet. We're the last great minority group, and I'm sick of it. Mrs. Maggrumph exploded.
Well, I know. Another quadrillion lines if you're so clever.
Robin sighed. But that's something else I can't do, write neatly. You're not listening to me. No one ever tried harder than I do, but all the effort in the world isn't going to change who I am and what I can do.
She's right,
said Bettina, pushing back a desk and standing up.
I was so expecting to hate her, but Penguin's all right. I don't know how clever she is on an international scale, but I know she's cleverer than me just from speaking to her. If you can't see that, then you're not much good as a teacher. We are all worthy, like she said.
Robin looked at her gratefully, and Bettina grinned back. Mrs. Maggrumph was unbowed.
A word is something I still don't buy. It must be, but you don't try. You set out to the Liberty Bird. I will your class Ned.
Hermione slouched away up from her desk, her wings folded in a mirror of the teacher.
Wrong again,
she said simply.
I've seen poor Robin trying so hard to please you, redoing her work over and over when everyone else is asleep. She works harder than anyone else does here. You can't ask more from your pupil than to try hard. We can't all do things to the same level. And she's right. We all deserve to be treated with respect.
Slowly the whole class got up to their feet. Lando said, I may not be too bright myself, but I am clever to know when someone else is trying hard. We are all decent beings. If you can't see that, then you're not as clever, or trying hard, or something like that. Archelaus was next.
Robin is a good student. Being a good student isn't always related to grades. Fact. We are all worthy of not being shouted at just for being ourselves too. Fact again.
Elfrida was close on his heels.
The shackles with which we have been bound have been tied too long. Students are not just here for your amusement, adults, but to learn. If you aren't able to teach us in a safe environment conducive to learning what we need to know, then there is no point us being here. It is time this tyranny ended.
XXXX tipped his chair over with a crash. He stood up so quickly.
Robin has an appetite for education like no one else I have ever seen, and we should not be starved of self-love.
Squash was next, as animated as I'd ever seen him, and briefly back to his old self.
True, you wrong, bad lady. We great.
Jake and I were the last to stand, but even we weren't going to be frightened into submission. Glabdiharbit said.
As scared as Robin is of upsetting you, she continues to keep doing all the things that you want her to do, and that makes her really brave.
Finally I stood up, coughed, and announced. I think you've got her wrong, Mrs. Maggrumph. Robin has tried so hard to please you, and all you've done is belittle her. She deserves better. We all do. Timidly, Margalo stood up and tilted her head back, as if trying not to look her mother in the eye.
I don't think getting it wrong was her intention. It would be unfair if you expelled her or gave her extra detention. She didn't mean to be a bother. It's just that it comes harder for some than others, and you don't have to be quite so hard on us all the time.
There was stunned silence. The teacher turned pale, her rhyming scheme escaping her in a high emotion.
I shall give you all endless detentions.
Trying,
muttered Hermione.
We'll be wasting your time as much as ours, and we're past caring.
I will send bad report cards to all your parents.
Tough, said Bettina.
Most of us don't have any parents to read them, and certainly no one to care.
And I will have you all expelled.
They did that once to me. To a lot of us, said Robin, holding the voice as steadily as she could. There's nothing you can do to us now that hasn't been done before, and we've survived it all. Fact.
You need us,
said Bettina slowly and carefully, and most unlike her usual eager, brash, impulsive self.
To keep your jobs, to keep your precious money, to keep up your wild scheme. We won't say how we know or what we know, but we know. For once someone needs us more than we need them, and that gives us such a feeling of power. I can see why adults abuse it so.
Then you will stay here,
exploded Mrs. Maggrumph,
and rot. No one will care.
We will care, said Lando, about each other. We always do. We always will. We might have been the beaten misfits of our planets individually, but are unbreakable when we work together.
You're not a proper teacher,
said Archelaus.
A proper teacher makes students grow. They don't belittle them to make them small. Fact.
Strike,
said Bettina.
We're not doing any work until you take back everything you said about Robin.
And reinstate the food replicators,
said XXXX.
And our television,
said Hermione.
And agree to set less homework,
said Elfrida.
And be less mean,
said Lando.
If not,
drawled Bettina, as carelessly as she dared as she fixed the teacher with 3 icy stares.
Maybe we should see about getting you sacked. Bring in an adult with more power than you and see what they have to say about your teaching abilities. Just think what a scandal it would be if the whole universe learnt how evil and wicked this school is. They would demand all their money back. You'd be paying the world's governments for centuries.
I shall report you off for picking on me to the highest authority,
wailed Mrs. Maggrumph.
If you like.
Hermione shrugged carelessly.
We're used to being at the bottom of the pile. We can't go any lower, and we don't believe in your authority anymore. We're just going to ignore it. From now on, none of us are going to do a thing you want us to do, and you can't stop us.
Kindness goes a long way, Lando said simply. That's the first lesson anyone should learn, in any place of learning, because it opens up so many doors and gets you most places, and it's one most children naturally learn, but so very many adults seem to forget. How you got so far through life without knowing that love and support is better than fear and hate is a mystery to me. It's the greatest education you can have in any school. If you haven't learned that, then your lessons aren't worth learning.
It's over,
said Bettina, all her arms folded.
Your dictatorship. Deal with it.
Mrs. Maggrumph looked defeated. Luckily for her, the bell rang.
Class dismissed,
she said.
But you haven't heard the last of this.
It felt as if we had all aged several years this week, carried troubles far heavier than anything anyone our age should carry. We trooped back into the great hall. I'm so sorry, Robin was still spluttering. I really didn't mean to do it. I couldn't help it. Thank you, everyone, for sticking up for me. Grrr, said Lando, really riled up by now. How dare she? Who does she think she is, upsetting my friends like that? What did any of us do to her?
Why do you see us as such a threat?
Asked Elfrida.
I mean, we're about 10 years old, Earth dating. She's no right to treat us like that.
How does she do that?
Asked Bettina.
I tell myself every lesson that I won't let her get to me, that she's a nobody, that I won't ever have to think about her ever again once I graduate, but she still winds me up every time.
I'm so sorry,
said Margalo, her antlers drooping.
I don't know why she behaves like that.
Not your fault, said Lando quickly. None of us can help who our parents are. Elfrida was fuming.
It's the epitome of unfairness. Think about it. Everyone has rights now except us. All species have rights. Even on the backward planets, all genders have rights. On some planets, even sentient algebraths have rights. But as children, what do we get? Nothing. We can't even vote in the people who choose to keep those rights away from us. We're the last great overlooked minority group anywhere in the universe. Adults can get away with doing anything they like to us. And who do we have to tell? More adults. Yeah, big surprise which side they're going to pick, isn't it?
Mean
said Jake.
and scary.
Robin wailed. I'm an absolute total failure. I can't even sit in a chair properly. I was trying so hard to help. Now I'm in big trouble with another school and I didn't even do anything. Lando hugged her tight, with me the other side, while even Blotchy came up to put his paws on her lap. Now, Robin, he said, that's not true. It all reflects on Mrs. Maggrumph, you know, and not you at all. Maybe it's all human, sobbed Robin. I mean, the rest of you give back something to the universe, but what have we ever done for anyone? We're just the rest of you species diluted.
Not Earth music,
said Bettina, nodding her head vigorously.
You're brilliant at that. We sounded really good once you were in charge of us. We play your music all the time, don't we, gang?
We sure do,
said Elfrida.
In fact, let's play some now. It will make you feel better. Let's choose. The spiritualism of Cat Stevens really gets to me.
I like the mathematic approach of Bach, CPU and JS on their great-great-great-grandson, QW,
said Archelaus.
Moody Blues for me,
said Hermione.
Very tranquil, with a few jakey songs thrown in.
Something quiet and small and fluffy for me. How about Lulu?
Asked the Glabdiharbit.
Otis Redding,
smiled XXXX.
A giant amongst humans in all the best ways.
I like Johnny Cash,
said Margalo,
especially the catalogue made by his great-great-grandchildren.
And she waved a copy of the Maggrumph in black under my nose. Friends by the Beach Boys, said Lando. Although they're all friends, brothers and cousins, of course, he added.
Crosby, Stills, Bash and Gun.
said Squash, briefly reverting back to his old self.
"You next, Colin,"
said Elfrida, and I scrolled through Robin's MP90 till I found the song I was after, Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, the full 42-minute version. How I loved those words about how becoming an adult was defined by being let down by your childhood heroes, and how even though adults pretended that they wanted you to learn, nobody liked prodigal, intelligent children who wrote a lot. It was a shame the song was so short, though.
I like the Belobrat pack best, or at least I think that's what they're called. That Sammy Davis clone robot they have out now is so talented, plus they're all so full of themselves. What do you like, Robin?
Asked Bettina, taking a sip of her Belobrat tea. The Spice Girls, she replied. Bettina spat out a drink in alarm while the rest of the gang hooted and laughed mockingly. Wait, Robin added, did I say something wrong?
I'll say,
said Bettina.
They were banned by the Geneva Galactic Convention as being unfit for an intergalactic audience. What is a zigger anyway?
Well, maybe I don't really. Thank you, sniffed Robin after our impromptu music session. I feel better now. What are friends for? Asked Lando before handing over a handkerchief. Now blow. Robin did. Wait a minute, though, she said. How come you have a handkerchief? You don't even have a nose. Oh, said Lando, I carry it for times like this, for the species that do, just in case anyone needs one.
So what happens now?
Asked Margalo after a pause, voicing what we were all thinking. We get a sack, said Lando fiercely, his anger seeming alien to that friendly face. Great clogged, hopping, jumped-up little antlered dictator. No offence, Margalo.
None taken,
said Margalo.
But how?
"That plan with the inspector sounded good. Can you all help me dress up to look like an adult?"
Elfrida asked.
"Maybe I could borrow the spare antlers you're not using, Margalo. Then if you three can crawl through the ventilation shaft again and let me through the front door, I can meet the inspection person when they come."
Bettina rubbed all three hands with glee.
And then we act totally stupid and make Mrs. Maggrumph really cross. It doesn't take much when we're behaving, so she's bound to go spare when we play up.
And we get that doctor for Squash, said Robin. That's our real priority. Elfrida nodded.
"How could they do that to him? Perhaps to all of us?"
she asked.
"Why can't adults just leave children alone instead of trying to change the bits they can't handle? It was really good fun when he first got here, even if he was a bit bitey. Look at him now."
Squash was gurgling happily to himself and laughing at something only he could see.
And then after we've helped him, we go on that trip and then we run away,
said Bettina.
There's nothing else for us here. Look, everyone, we only have to last one more day of lessons and then we're free.
Yes,
said Archelaus.
That's all very well, but to be practical about this for a minute. Where do we go? How do we live? We are still children. We won't be able to get a job or money to live.
How do we eat?
Said XXXX.
We'll starve.
Bettina slumped back in her chair.
I confess, I hadn't thought of any of that,
she said.
Any ideas?
But there were none. Said Bettina.
Coming up with plans is hard work.
"I'll expect a lot more of it,"
sighed Elfrida.
"They do say that most of being an adult is an exercise in damage limitation. That's another thing that scares me so much about growing up."
No wonder adults are so cross-patchy all the time then,
said Bettina.
Now come on, we've got an hour before bed. Let's do something, or the adults will start to get suspicious we're up to something. Somebody wake the Habridat up and ask her where she put her playing cards. Snap,
said Bettina loudly, leaping up from a chair and causing Jake to cower under his.
I win again. Yay, go me, go me, go me. I'm a genius. Belobrat's abreast, Belobrat's abreast. Get in.
Good game,
said Squash, patting her on the back.
Not fair,
said Hermione.
You've got 3 arms and the rest of us have only got 2.
I'd also like to point out that the rest of us are playing poker, not stuff,
said Archelaus.
Oh,
Bettina sat down.
So you are. My bad.
"I'd additionally like to point out that you can't play either game very well with trading cards,"
pointed out Elfrida.
Oh,
said Bettina.
Right there too. Oh well, whatever game this is I've just brilliantly invented, it's sure fun, and I beat you all hollow. We can play your game now, Archie.
Sighing, Elfrida dealt another hand of cards.
"I still say this is a stupid game to pick. Archelaus always wins because his expressions are impossible to read. Bettina always comes last because one of the heads always gives the game away."
Well, we can't play Snap either, because all that yelling is scaring the Glabdiharbit, said Lando.
God, scary.
Said Jake.
Could we play something quieter?
A dozen Doosbury doughnuts. But I was quiet,
said Bettina.
You should see me celebrate when I do really well at something.
How about happy families? Asked Robin. Hermione snorted.
As if any of us know anything about that.
OK, said Robin, thinking quickly. We had a game at my school called Donkey. We take one card away and try to match pairs up, and whoever is left with it at the end loses. Oh, we know that game, laughed Lando. Only in our version it's called Maggrumph. Sorry, Margalo. Maggrumph, she said.
If this is your idea of having fun together, I think I'd rather not play.
Haven't we got a board game somewhere?
Asked Jake.
They're quiet. Yeesh.
Oh yes, we've got Universal Monopoly somewhere,
said Bettina.
You newbies won't know it. All the little characters are different species, and you buy at planets round the board, or try not to land on Ensconce.
Sorry, said Lando. We lost all the pieces when you came last and knocked the board over.
Oh,
said Bettina.
Did I?
Plus XXXX ate the board.
Sorry.
Said XXXX, licking his lips at the memory.
Hotels are crunchy.
What's on the TV then? Asked Robin, as Lando obediently turned our holovision on.
Probably some more adult nonsense, but there's no relevance to us,
scoffed Hermione.
Wait,
said XXXX.
That's Woowawa. Turn it up. She's dreaming.
On the TV was footage of Woowawa running round a track.
Will this Doosbury Giant become the most decorated intergalactic Olympian in history?
Asked the voiceover.
Well, yes, probably, because this is the first ever intergalactic space Olympics, and she's at the absolute peak of her form. Just look at her in preparation for the foosball event, part of Endecagon, the most famous intergalactic Olympic event made up of 11 events, all nominated by each species.
The TV cut to brief footage of Woowawa in training, followed by copious amounts of footage of Woowawa eating.
Doosbury athletes need to consume a ridiculous amount of calories,
the voiceover was saying.
Just look at the amount of cream pie she could put away in one sitting.
She's my hero,
said XXX.
I wish I could eat that many pies in one sitting. Now that's what I call a sport. Oh, it's finishing.
The TV flicked on to the next programme.
Welcome to BC News with me, Bob Belobrat. Breaking news, what's with the latest epidemic wiping out great swathes of the universe? Here with me is an expert, Dr. Hooster, from the hospital planet Medicus.
Hey, said Hermione.
Isn't that the name of the doctor you were speaking to earlier, Alfredo?
Goodness,
the Mrasianart answered.
So it is. Well, at least we'll be able to recognise him.
John,
the doctor said.
Do you have any graphite sticks to nibble? Or some nice bland earth porridge?
Not now, Doctor. You can have as many as you like after the broadcast. Please tell us what you think this latest development is caused by and what it means for the entire 11 races.
Well, said the doctor, leaning back in his chair,
I first spotted it when so many people started getting in touch with my surgery. As you know, I'm more of a psychologist or a therapist because there aren't such things as general medicinal practitioners anymore. Since the Mekkions invented the antivirus filters that surround each planet, no one should get physically sick in today's day and age. Very clever stuff, those filters, even if they robbed me of my calling, for which I trained 20 years. Not that I'm biased or anything.
Do go on,
said Bob, struggling to be patient.
Well, I thought at first it was one of the big 5 viruses that used to be around making themselves felt again. The Clandusprod cold, Camalosian chickenpox, the Habridat fever, the Maggrumph measles, and human COVID. But no, this problem seemed to be much more serious and affected all 11 species more or less equally. So then I wondered whether some dumb species had started eating weird animals and selling them in markets again. You know the sort of thing. Our giraffes and pangolins and bats mixed together. I know it's illegal, but you'd be amazed what some species get up to in the privacy of their own planet. However, our early research suggests it isn't that either.
So what is it?
Breathed in Bob, fully aware that this might be the most exciting moment of his career so far.
Not a clue, said Dr. Hooster. I wouldn't mind just a little pencil to chew if anyone's got one. Or a biro. Felt tip? No.
But there must be a lead you can go on,
said Bob.
I'm sure our scientists are working hard night and day to cure it.
Hardly, said Dr. Hooster. We don't really have any scientists anymore, you know, not now the Mekkions have discovered everything there could possibly be to discover. I mean, what would be the point? That's an anachronism. We don't have gazumpheries running on coal anymore now, do we? Or Blu-rays, now we have relay rays. Or wireless internet, now we have the universal. But we still haven't found a replacement for those irritating little clips you get with new shirts that stick to your skin and poke you.
Yes, said Bob. But somebody must have put 2 together by now.
Well, said Dr. Hooster, picking up Bob's microphone and absent-mindedly munching it. Not really. The only thing we can tell is that it seems to have been man-made, or, Belobrat made, or Clandusprod made, or Agrosian made, or, well, you get my drift. It's been artificially induced.
But who would do such a thing?
Asked Bob.
And why?
No idea, said Dr. Hooster. It's got the best minds in the business stumped. Mekkions, Mrasianarts, everybody. Maybe when this cop-out environmental conference meets on Decreeta, they might be able to solve it. All I know is it seems to have started on Earth and spread elsewhere. But how is it being manufactured in such vast quantities without anybody noticing? There must be a whole planet of this stuff being made somewhere. Wowzers, said Robin. That's it. It's the red weed, it's got to be. Let's tell them when we go on that trip on Saturday.
Who's going to listen to us, though?
Sighed Hermione.
Some kids on the school trip solving the big crisis the greatest minds in the universe couldn't solve. Yeah, right.
They've got to listen, said Robin. I mean, look at the evidence we've got already. Anyone can drop in with information, Dr. Hooster was saying. There you are, you see, said Robin. Above the age of 18 human, or 1,000 Habridat, or... Botheration, soothed Robin. I hate being young and little.
Maybe I could dress up again,
asked Elfrida uncertainly.
What we ought to do,
Bettina said,
is make some adult listen to us first, and then get them to come along with us. But who do we ask?
The TV had moved on to a programme about treasure hunts. A planet, a treasure map, a team of intrepid explorers. 2 brothers have been digging for buried treasure for 10 years, and this might be the day they find it. Some clues link the treasure to key figures from history, including the Glabdiharbit Templar Knights of the Undertables, the Mrasianart Masons, the Clandusprod Explorers clan, and fierce space pirate Blackadler's Maggrumph. Others say it's a stash of treasures buried by collectors ranging from Camalosian portfolio legal documents to rare Belobrat coins to Doosbury recipes. No one has died, but someone developed a bad back, all part of the curse of Sycamore Planet. Previously.
No, it's not here. No,
said an Agrosian archaeologist swearing.
Curses!
Keep digging, men, said the Clandusprod. It might be under the next rock.
Well,
said the Mrasianart.
One more digger will be at the planet's core already.
Hey, I think I found something,
said the Doosbury Giant metal detectorist. You don't mean, gasped the others.
Yes,
he said.
My lunch. I knew I put it down somewhere to warm up. Wait, what's that noise?
The archaeological team had accidentally dug through a crack in the ground surface, and suddenly great streams of red lava came rushing out while the whole planet shook. Glabdiharbit screamed as he ran. The voiceover continued. Coming up, will our heroes survive? Will the earthquake they've just accidentally unleashed bury all the evidence so they have to start over again, from scratch? What flavour sandwich did the Doosbury Giant discover? All is about to be revealed next on The Curse of Planet Sycamore. That's what's happened on Earth, said Robin excitedly. We didn't have to dig very far, and suddenly there was this red stuff oozing everywhere. They said it couldn't possibly be connected with the red weed everyone was taking in pill form, but it must have been. The timing was just too much of a coincidence. How did it get into the Earth's crust like that?
Global warming?
Offered Elfrida. But we'd had that for centuries already, and Mekkion technology had pretty much kept it at bay, said Robin. I mean, why would it happen at just the time when this stuff appeared? And the same colour. It has to be connected. But why would that happen on Sycamore Island? Asked Lando. Robin shrugged. I don't know. Maybe the people there ate red weed too.
Planet's uninhabited now,
said Archelaus.
Well, apart from the production team of several hundred people and the show's presenters.
Oh, said Robin, her face falling. I don't know. All I know is my world wasn't like it before.
Turn the TV off,
said Bettina.
We've seen all we wanted to find out.
Oh, said Hermione.
I absolutely love that show. I hope we find something one day. I wouldn't have the patience,
said Bettina.
All I need is to tune into the last episode. I can't cope with all these emotional ups and downs along the way. Plays havoc with my nerves. That's the whole point of the show,
complained Hermione.
You don't get the reward on the roller coaster unless you experience the whole ride.
Do you think we'll be alright?
Squeaked Jay.
I'm scared.
You're always scared,
said Archelaus.
I don't know if you've noticed,
replied Jake.
but there's rather a lot to be scared of. Strong opinion that's a very pertinent response to the way I'm feeling that might as well be a fact.
Don't worry, said Lando quickly, trying to defuse the situation. We're all together. They can't break a united front. We all learnt the power of unity on Ziggurat's Free, but we were better when our clans were working together, and all our claves were facing the same way. Whatever they do to us, we will be together. We'll see to that. Can we though? Asked Robin helplessly. I mean, they have all the control. There's no control that can break up a friendship, said Lando. Not if they send us to the furthest 11 corners of the universe. We'll still find a way to communicate with and help each other. We have to be there for each other. We have no choice, because who is there looking out for us but each other? It's too big a universe to feel alone in.
Blotchy too?
Asked Bettina. Blotchy too, smiled Lando. Let's take him with us just in case. Smuggle him on board our trip somehow.
How though?
Asked Bettina.
I mean, we'd have to have an excuse to take a really big bag on board.
She looked over at XXX and smiled.
Have you packed your lunch for the trip tomorrow yet, by any chance?
She asked.
Have I?
He said, pointing towards 5 large bags that were propped up by the hall door.
Do you think maybe you could manage the 6th?
Bettina asked.
Full of what?
He asked. Hot Archibald, laughed Robin, who was busy being licked. She glanced at the look on XXX's face and said quickly, Oh, it's not for eating, don't worry. Doosbury Giant thought for a second.
Will it fit in the lunchbox?
He'll fit wherever we tell him to,
said Bettina proudly, going over to the Archibald.
Won't you, boy? You remember that trick where we taught you to stay still and quiet, don't you?
Blotchy froze in an instant.
Good boy.
That Archibald really is far more intelligent than he should be for his age,
said Elfrida. Bettina shrugged.
He had a good teacher. Well, gang, I guess it's time for bed. Let's put Squash to bed first.
Thanks awfully.
The Agrosian blushed.
I hate to be a bother. You know your middle head is looking particularly pretty tonight. Isn't it a lovely day?
It's night time,
said Bettina, her middle head blushing at the compliment, and the two either side blushing in tandem when everyone laughed.
Get into bed and be quiet, for goodness sakes.
You're so good to me,
sighed Squash.
Thank you for being my friend.
My turn for the story tonight, said Lando proudly, as the lights went out. We were all treated to the Clandusprod tuck-in. Even Margalo, who usually resisted.
Let me guess,
drawled Hermione.
Is it another epic about the importance of teamwork?
Maybe, admitted Lando. Tonight's story is all about Agartha, for which I'll have to give you some backstory. As you all know, Ziggurat's Free has such strong sunlight from its 3 suns that for millennia Clandusprods weren't able to mix. We just lived in our separate caves, shielding from the sunlight, each of us doing our own things, right up until an enterprising explorer clan invented the first solar-proof suit and came to visit everyone else. However, legend has it that, in our dim and distant past, Clandusprods met up before then without having to go outside. Deep in the heart of Ziggurat's Free lies a cave system, so deep in the soil of our planet that it runs right by the planet's core, a little like where those treasure hunters were on the telly today. Everyone who's looked for it in the present day has failed to find it, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. After all, myths and legends spring up in all our caves separately, and we had no contact between them. So if we all heard it, separately and independently, it must be true, mustn't it? Anyway, Agartha was a complete secondary planet, running below our own. It even had its own capital city, Shambhala, which translates as the Clan of Tranquility, although others know it as the Cave of Eden. These Clandusprods were said to be highly spiritual after years of living in the dark, and were a little like Mrasianart, fine-tuning their inner wisdom after so many years of evolution, not being able to see physically with their eyes. Every cave was said to have their own personal entrance to the land of Agartha. It may even have been that all Clandusprods were first born there in time immemorial, and we all climbed up to our different caves separately, but that our memory of this was lost in the mists of time. In my own cave, there was an elder philosopher named Kevin. See how long ago this was? K-names were still fashionable. Who claimed to have lived with these beings after stumbling across the entrance one day. He told us many legends about these caves. The entrance was said to move so you could never find your way back until some higher being considered that it was time for it to open again. It looked like a gigantic black hole, circled by the most amazing aurora borealis type lights and spitting electricity, but underground. Another rumour is that this was a dark and evil place full of beings who kidnapped young Clandusprods and raised them as their own in the way of the Shambhala. They even created robots to do menial work for them. Legend has it that this is where you Mekkions come in, Archie, before you all invented space technology and flew off to found your own planet.
Said Archelaus. Unlikely. Like most myths, it seems to have no basis in fact.
Some do. Anyway, continued Lando, some other people say the Agrosians were founded by a holy pair of Clandusprods who brought their family into the caves away from the corruption and division of the rest of the Clandusprod clans. Then again, some historians say they probably weren't all that, and they were just escaping from a giant flood that wiped out all our caves way back in the distant past. Another legend tells of a super Clandusprod with special powers who dressed in a cape and came to the rescue whenever one particular cave needed their help. Others say they were at war with the Earth Atlanteans, and they both wiped each other out. Cool, said Robin. My favourite story is that they were used to pop up randomly in our caves every now and then to see how we, their successors, were all doing, and nudging us in the right direction if one of our clans was struggling, so that they could catch up with the others and not be left behind. Some say they even created the crystal skull we have in our philosophy cave, in the shape of a Clandusprod head, that's meant to bring us great peace, wisdom and understanding. Hey, said Robin, we have one of those on Earth too.
And Helisphere,
said Bettina.
And Habridat,
said Hermione. Said Jake.
And Raz.
said Elfrida. And Camalosian, I wrote.
and Maggrumph,
said Margot.
Samples.
I think somebody 8 hours.
said XXXX.
Superstitious nonsense.
Interrupted Archelaus. Oh, interesting. Anyway, that's another story for another night, continued Lando. You see, the Agrosians were said to have already had the knowledge of the stars and other species that they had discovered during times of past space travel. But rather than give in to us before we were ready to use it, they wanted us to learn it ourselves, cave by cave, before we were evolved enough to put all our education and experience together to help one another. I like to think our class is a little like that, with each of us helping each other as best we can. Legend has it that one day our Agrosian clan will come back and compliment us on finally being ready to join them in the mystic underworld. Ever since I heard that story, I've been trying to look for the entrance to Agartha. And one day, years and years, and absolutely years ago, when I was about, 8 I think, I found it. I was exploring with my friends, which is frowned on in most of the caves, but is always encouraged in the explorer clan. When do you know what we found? A tiny door buried deep in the rock, right at the back of the cave. It was on very creaky hinges, but it opened slowly, squeakily. The others didn't want to go down it, but my curiosity was killing me, so I climbed through it. I was a lot smaller in those days, of course, and I made my way to a giant cavern, which led into a smaller cavern, which led into a medium-sized cavern. By then I had climbed for what felt like miles. I very nearly turned back. I climbed into the last cave, and I saw nothing. Oh, said Robin, that's a disappointment. Well, said Lando, not really. You see, there had obviously been somebody living in there at some point. There was the remnants of food on the floor, an artificial sun hanging on the back of the door, which is what we use for our light indoors, fueled by solar power from the real ones. Paintings on the walls too.
Oh,
said Elfrida.
what were the paintings like?
An amazing, breathed Lando. Pictures of Clandusprods in skins hunting saber-toothed argibraphs. Blotchy squeaked and ran off. No, Blotchy, don't worry, called Lando. This was a long time ago. Besides, you can't taste very nice, or XXX would have tried to eat you.
I only had a lick,
said XXXX, looking ashen-faced.
just to see what he would taste like. It's not fair you should keep bringing that up. He tasted the fur anyway.
Anyway, continued Lando, they were clearly very old. I mean, the paint had dried, and Clandusprod paint takes generations to dry fully in our strong sunlight. We have to be careful not to smudge them. I looked around and wondered who could possibly have created such stunning pictures. Was it one of those mystical beings from the land of Agartha come back to claim their rightful heirs? Was this my first step into the sanctity of a new world I could only dream of? Was I about to inherit the knowledge of a secret society who created so many magical things?
Logically, it was probably a vagrant,
sniffed Archelaus. Hardly, said Lando. We don't have any homelessness on Ziggurisfree, because without a cave to live in, you die. Everyone lives somewhere, even if they end up in the wrong clan sometimes. Being without shelter seems horrible. I don't know how other species even have a word for it, never mind put up with it. Anyway, I climbed back and told my clan elders about it all, and they said that I would make a good explorer sprod one day, because only the best Clandusprods ever found the secret cave, and they were proud of me. But it signified that I would do great things one day, which seemed unlikely to me, given how stupid I am. But still, they seemed to know all about it. And did they all rush down to look? Asked Robin. Well, no, admitted Lando. I heard a rumour that one of our lecturers had put it there as a part of the training exercise to see which of us would discover it and get extra marks in some secret test. But I don't really believe that. The paint was dry. I mean, our teachers were well old, as all teachers are, of course, but not that old. One day I'm going to go back and find it.
And us with you,
said Bettina.
If anyone can find it, I bet we can.
Good night, everyone. In the darkness, two big eyes opened and Jake squeaked.
I wish we could escape to Agartha, then we wouldn't have to face tomorrow. Tomorrow sounds scary.
Elfrida chimed in.
Or maybe if we all imagine Agartha instead as we sleep. It sounds like the sort of place that could exist in one's head, so you could carry it around with you, like the best stories.
Is anyone awake?
I heard Hermione whispering as I wrote up my night's notes, gathering together all the notebooks and pens I need for the journey. I had quite a satchel full.
Me!
Squeaked Jake.
Too scared to sleep, having nightmares.
Don't worry, Furball,
said Hermione.
We've survived till now. You just have to roll with the punches a little sometimes.
I roll everywhere.
Squeaked Jake.
It doesn't really help. The punches get me anyway.
No,
said Hermione.
I mean, go with the flow a bit.
Who's Flo?
Said Jake.
Is she scary?
No,
said Hermione.
I mean, learn to be more laid back.
Oh,
said Jake.
I can do that.
And he rolled off the back of his bed in a heap of crushed pillows and squeaks.
Adult-pated and anachronistic Agrosian astronauts. What's that noise?
Asked Bettina.
Sorry.
Squeaked Jake.
I was trying to be laid back, but I don't think Glabdiharbit is about to be laid back.
I'll say, said Robin, rubbing herself where she'd been smacked in the head by a pillow.
Sorry,
said Hermione.
My fault. I should know better than to try to change the nature of a Glabdiharbit.
I might have known he'd been encouraged into it,
laughed Bettina, throwing one of the fallen pillows up at the hammocking Habridat. A flurry of feathers suggested her aim was spot on.
Hey, no fair!
She called back and threw it back, where it landed on top of a sleeping squash.
Not today, thank you,
he said politely, doffing an imaginary cap in his sleep.
Please call again some other time, when I'm more awake.
Take that, said Margalo, aiming a pillow towards Hermione, but getting Elfrida by mistake, who was knocked off a roulet board and floated down to the ground in her sleep.
Oops, sorry,
she said, before receiving a pillow squarely in the antlers. Meanwhile, Bettina moved up to get Hermione from the other side of a hammock, but she was ready and waiting, and got Bettina 3 times on 3 heads with 3 separate pillows.
Ow, ow, ow,
she laughed.
I go to get you for that, featherbrain.
Before too many minutes had passed, the great hall had erupted into a monsoon of flying pillows and giggles, as each of us vented all the pent-up aggression we'd been feeling. Well, all of us except Squash, who slept right through it, and Jake, who, having started the chaos, was now petrified by it, squeaking,
Please stop! Please stop!
"We're only playing," said Lando as he whacked Robin round the back of her head in a surprise ninja stealth attack. "We don't mean anything by it,"
Playing's scary,
said Jake.
My card collection,
cried Archulus.
Who knocked it over? It will take me precisely 42.7 seconds to put this lot in order again.
"That should keep you happy then," laughed Robin. Archulus got a protractor out to measure lengths, width, height and trajectory, and aimed a pillow squarely for her head. She ducked, it missed, and it hit the wall and bounced back to hit the Mekkion on the head instead. I laughed really loudly and found 11 heads, including all of Bettina's, turning towards me in shock.
I don't think I've ever heard you laugh before, Colin,
said Bettina. She grinned.
What a noise you make for someone so small.
So I hit her with a pillow. I went to XXX with my other pillow, but the Doosbury Giant just thanked me and started eating it.
Beautiful salt,
he said.
but not bad.
What is this row?
Called Mrs. Maggrumph from the doorway.
Lights back on now!
It blazed back on in a cauldron of light, blinding us, especially Elfrida, who had been in the air at the time about to hurl the sequence of pillows, and who crash-landed on top of Lando.
Look at this mess. Just about tomorrow I shall give you all a test. Now make sure it is all clean and tidy. Right now, and don't you dare to find me.
The class groaned as she closed the door.
Oh dear,
Said Jake.
I have exam anxiety.
For that matter, so do we all.
Said Bettina.
I mean, I know Belobrats are the best. There's no need to test us.
Never mind, said Lando comfortingly. Hopefully by the time we get the results back, we'll be far away. We all looked at each other. It all seemed so unlikely. Would we really be away from this awful place by tomorrow night? Forever? What do we do then? Asked Robin, putting her bed back so it almost resembled the way it had started. If you squinted hard. Do we stay together? I mean, I don't think I could cope being on my own again. She asked the question lightly, but it had clearly been playing on her mind.
Clattering Clandusprod clones in the closet. Of course we're staying together,
Said Bettina.
We're friends as well as classmates. You don't think we'd leave you, do you, Penguin?
Oh, good, said Robin. I just wondered. I mean, everyone leaves in the end.
What about me then?
Said Margalo.
I mean, I think your trick with the teapots was quite funny now, but I don't want to be left behind here, on my own.
I have a plan for that. No one is going to be let out of our sight from now on.
Said Bettina firmly.
Not even you, Margalo. Although we really need to get squashed to a doctor.
The Agrosian was going from bed to bed, trying them all and muttering,
Too soft,
or
too hard.
until disappearing into the middle of XXX's giant mattress.
Ooh, this one smells of porridge. Just right.
He said. Oh, good, said Robin, visibly relieved as she helped XXXX get squashed out of his bed. What can we do, though? How can we live? We're still too young to earn money. Nobody could answer that, not even Bettina, or Elfrida, or Archibald. I fell asleep worrying about what would become of us. Adulthood, with scary dreams of seeing us destitute, hungry, struggling. After all, what job could 11 half-sized children do? The only thing we were good at doing was looking out for each other. That seemed to be more of a survival strategy than a career. And what would happen when Mrs. Maggrumph found us missing? She didn't seem the sort that would let us go that easily. Whatever it included, the future seems to include more growing up and fast, and that suddenly put every single other fear, of the type that Jake always had, in perspective. I hadn't really had time to get a handle on being a child yet. Were these childhood days really the happiest of our lives? Was it really going to get worse? Or was that just something adults said when they grew tall and had forgotten all about their growing pains? In my dreams, I found myself in the Garther, exploring cave after cave with all my classmates and friends, until slowly they disappeared one by one, leaving me to fend for myself as the cave walls got smaller and smaller. Or maybe it was me growing bigger and bigger, slowly suffocating myself as I became confined by an increasingly narrowing options. Every time I entered a new cave, I felt that I would be more grown up than I was in the last, but I seemed to be even less sure of who I was than I had been before, shedding layer after layer of skin in a desperate attempt to find out who I was, yet finding less and less of substance there. At least here, when I was surrounded by friends, I could be defined by them, but once my friends were grown and gone, I didn't want to hang around a mute Camalosian any longer, and I had to become a main player in my own life. What then? Would I just fade away completely? I searched through each cave one after another, exploring more of life's underbelly, searching for someone, but all that happened was that I lost more and more of myself. As I dreamed myself big, I found my head swelling with thoughts too, of all the roads that I should have taken, and all the chances missed, each of them growing in number until they gnawed at my insides. After all, in this world there was no one to tell me what to do, and an infinite set of things to do, and I couldn't do them all. In my dreams too, I sensed that each cave represented some change, some new section of life I had to crawl through, some new challenge that would wear me out. Camometer, Bilosian meter. Change had already destroyed my life once. Was this all there was, as the stable world crumbled beneath my feet? You could lose yourself in these caves forever. Maybe I should stay a child a while longer, I thought, as I drifted off to sleep. I wasn't ready to cope with power and responsibility for the rest of my life just yet. For now, I wasn't even ready to cope with tomorrow.